defending the voiceless, the wrongly accused, facing a foe whose motives are abused. In the courtroom battlefield, they'll stand tall, unveiling corruption. They'll conquer it all. Against the what prosecutes us right, with words like weapons cutting like a knife, challenging the system that's filled with lies, seeking truth and justice in their eyes.
Heyo, folks, and welcome to this afternoon recap. I streamed the morning live. Look, I had Jeff showing up, which was amazing. But now it is time to do a recap after afternoon. I had a nice nap because worked all day, streamed to you guys, and now let's get on with it. And if the afternoon is anything like this morning, I'm having a beer. Hey, thank you. Yeah. I'm going to treat this as one of my Friday streams. Not Friday panel, but Friday streams. Now, why do I do that? Because I took tomorrow off. I have stuff to do at home tomorrow. And yeah. Also, I'm quite worried because I do have a few friends in Florida that I am a bit worried about. So I need... Yes, pink slime. Yeah. I'm having a drink. Oh, and I prepared a little something that I brought all the way from the United States when I was there in August. I brought... You see it? Come on. Show it. Focus. Well, it's Old Smoky moonshine. And I have 3 of them. So yeah, those are in preparation. And I was thinking, am I bold? To say I'm having 1 Buc-ee's shot glass worth of this for every 45 gifted membership. I just made that number up. Or the equivalent in Super Chat, or the equivalent in PayPal. So yeah, if I'm going to yell at the prosecutors, yeah, let's go for it. So what I have here is, well, this is, does it say white chocolate? White chocolate moonshine? Seriously? What's this? Apple pie moonshine. Yeah. Merca. And white lightning moonshine. I have no clue what it is. Because when I went to that store, I think it was in Indianapolis, or in Indiana at least. I asked, because first was Kentucky or Tennessee. Tennessee, it might be. Tennessee. And oh, hello from Cat Not Williams. Tennessee I must have bought, and I asked him, take 3 randoms. So I guess I got 3 of the things they sold the least. We're off to a good start. We're off to a good we're off to a good start. Gifting 5 memberships. Let's see here. Let me prepare for you the rolling banner that goes down there. There. New members. Bum, bum, bum. 5. There. Thank you, Finding Good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It went to Confused Conservative. Chicken Shyite. Gay Zulu. Mama Bug. And That Pot. Thank you so much. And you, of course, you who was gifted have access to all my members only content, all the members only perks, including but not limited to my Discord, your own emojis, and members only content. Thank you so much. Okay. I thought I would start you off with a few clips that people have posted over at X, because apparently, there was hot mics today. And this was something caught at Cat's channel. So let's see here.
And who's the second wiretap?
It's Antonio Sumlin. He's in a little different category because he's someone the state intends on calling at trial.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Should we need to address this right now or?
I don't believe we do, Your Honor, because a lot of his there is some that I believe are co-conspirator statements, but he's also a testifying witness. So some of these are going to be more an impeachment.
Okay. All right.
Kid is just muted, love.
Oh, that is what happened. He he shut off her microphone. I need to see that again. Hold on while I try to boost this a bit more. No, not that one. There it is.
Right now or?
I don't believe we do, Your Honor, because a lot of his there is some that I believe are co-conspirator statements, but he's also a testifying witness. So some of these are going to be more an impeachment.
Okay. All right.
Kid is just muted, love.
Oh. I mean, Adkins seems to be. I know we haven't seen him much, and I've been so far. I don't consider him important enough to barely remember his name. Apparently, he did quite a good job today, considering compared to Miss Love and Miss Hilton, at least. Got through a lot of stuff. And at one point, he acknowledged being wrong. And I can't see Miss Love ever doing that. Then it is this kind.
What suggests?
Oh, let's try again. No, not that one. Volume. No, not that one. There it is.
That he is doing anything illegal by chasing that money.
Why? Why doesn't it say?
Your Honor.
Isn't that what pretty much all of us who aren't independently wealthy have to do every day of our lives?
Your Honor, I'm not.
Okay, let's hear that again.
What suggests that he is doing anything illegal by chasing that money?
Your Honor,
Isn't that what pretty much all of us who aren't independently wealthy have to do every day of our lives?
Yeah, Judge Whitaker has a point. What is it about chasing money that makes young thug gang activity? Everybody who hasn't got an inheritance, who actually has to work for a living, that paycheck to paycheck, and maybe you got a few bucks to save into a savings account or stock fund account or something like that. Just anybody chasing money, that's not a crime unless you actually commit crime. And I have to say, we are 141 trial days in. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of photos, hundreds of hours of interviews, hundreds of hours of wiretap, hundreds of hours of jail calls. Not one piece of evidence have told us that Jeffrey Williams is the actual leader of a criminal gang called YSL. Not one. Miss Love has tried to elicit it through bringing it out of witnesses, and a few of the gang experts have testified to it, but when it comes to actual evidence, absolute zero. Fuck all. Yeah, my alarm just went off and it's still playing. I don't know why. It should. Folks, hold. I'll let you listen to this for a bit while I go and turn that crap off. Hold on for a second.
Your Honor, I'm not saying that it is with certainty that this is what he is saying. What I'm saying is that it is evidence that tends to, or that has a tendency to make a portion of our assertions or our allegations in the indictment true to the extent that it is relevant that he made or said that, made that statement on that posting. He is representing YSL. He is.
I mean, obviously, you know, it's all over his body, but how is the post, the language representing YSL?
The language, it's as if he said, I stay ready, or
It really doesn't seem to say that.
I didn't say
You
he
can
s-
put that post in the picture without the language. Okay, what's next?
Okay. Now, let's go to the actual afternoon of this Fuster clock. The video is really quiet and I'm really loud. Really? Settings, audio. It's automatically adjust mic volume. And I had that recording on my at 600%. So that is the loudest I could make that, sadly. Kim Copeland, why is there no court tomorrow? No, tomorrow will be, if I understood it correctly, an actual ex parte, not an ex parte meeting, but it will be a meeting between lawyers and judge that for some reason isn't part of the record, part of this trial. I don't know how that is possible, because if it is about any one of the defendants, any one of the lawyers, any one of the prosecutors, then it's about this case. And yeah, as Nem says over there, in-chamber meeting. And those are never public. It's called in camera, but it actually means off camera. So probably we will have a new trial day on Friday. So I have no idea what will be going on, and I don't think that I will be able to drag that information out of any one of my contacts, but I will try. I will try. So we will see what happens. And then, of course, Monday will be jury is back. So oh, but no, not that one. And that one, so we don't have to see the law and C word banner down there. Okay, let's see here what went on the afternoon.
Who is?
Nichols.
All right.
No, Stillwell.
You don't have, okay, well, our court reporter doesn't have any power, so we're not going to be doing much.
I just walked into.
Okay, let's skip ahead.
58. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And it's going to be PDF page 3058, reference number 3030.
Okay.
Playing in 1.25. Is it better sound from port now, folks?
And Your Honor, this call, it's select portions, so
more
I'll
calls.
announce which portions. I'm going to start with 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 16 seconds.
Okay.
And these are the time hacks that are on the chart all parties have.
Something I miss from being in the courtroom is that the sound is much better in courtroom than we have here. I really miss that.
All right. And what are the objections going to be? Can y'all voice the objection so I can know what to be listening for?
11 Alive does not have
Yes,
closed captions. That's the issue.
Your Honor, this is kind of going to be the same thing with relevance and also hearsay. Again, it seems to me that this is going to be Mr. Garlington. I think it's fair to say from going through the wiretap that Mr. Garlington is involved in the drug trade from the context of everything he talks about on the wiretap. What I will not agree with is that this has anything to do with anyone other than Mr. Garlington. And so a lot of what he's talking about is illegality, general incriminality, but I don't see how it's relevant to this case, and I certainly don't see how it comes in through a hearsay exception to this case.
All right. Well, I guess I'll just listen and see.
Island boy had little spider fever and little shit like that.
Who?
I say, Roland had a little house, little apartment out in the fever.
Yeah.
We need some little shit like that around the way that we can roll out of, bro.
Yeah. Hey, I think
Your Honor, that's 2 minutes to 2:16. We're next going to play 6 minutes and 7 seconds to 8 minutes and 24 seconds.
So that was useless.
He just act like, well, I'll get him 23rd on the reason. I say, man, come on, man, D had his own money, man.
I'm telling you, man. That nigga said, this would let me see the video. That nigga said they had over 17,000. Like, what nigga did? Come on, bro. Man.
And he keep trying to like he pumping you, he don't pump you up and all that. Go ahead on, man.
Yeah, man. Nigga,
Yeah.
brother, man, gave me
Nigga,
$1,000. Listen, what? That nigga gave me $1,000 when I got out, bro. look, he just want to be in so much competition with niggas. Look, B Salam gave me like B Salam and Matt Main, they gave me like 500 apiece. And I think B Salam gave me like 800, and Matt Main gave me like 500. But he had that loss. He was just like shit. He was telling me like everything I win right here, pick it up. I had them pick up for 500. So I was telling him like shit. And he like, man, that's all he gave you. He like shit. Yeah. He niggas with rappers and shit. Yeah, man. I thought that was Cecil right there. Like, yeah, man, my boy 1,000. That's how nigga give you 500. Remember he worried about what another nigga gave me, bro.
Exactly, bro. Like you don't need. What the hell you ain't worried about? That ain't got nothing to do with you, bro.
That man gave me $1,000, bro. Number side it, like nigga, I was going through getting the weed. And he was still putting like how everybody else saying. Matt Main telling folk goddamn, I'm like, boy, hey man, he know he lying. The man told him folk like, man, but he took the boy out there. Shit, man, you know, he tell me everything. He really took him out there. Back the plug situation, man. Man, home busting the head, 200-300. He like shit when he told me like shit, but you supposed to do it. Man, I ain't told you no shit like that.
Say that, G.
Huh?
He said, man, say that.
Yeah, that way everybody did from like when I told Roger, like me and Roger was turning at the gambling house, I ain't.
Just any sound gets the number one answer. Just go, number one answer.
Yeah, playing faster doesn't help it, and yeah. For frick's sake. Let's try normal speed and see if we hear anything.
Just think like, man, I'm out here just taking everybody. I'm right there just telling Roger, you like, man, hell no, I don't believe it, bro.
Yeah.
He like, yeah.
And Your Honor, the next portion is 8 minutes and 30 seconds to 9 minutes and 24 seconds.
The best thing about me putting myself here, I cover him as well.
Almost definitely tripping with the shell kill shit. Like,
yeah, then he like, what? I don't fuck them niggas, but hey, boy, then when he started getting saying like, oh yeah, boy, I got something for whoever get him. Boy, I got something for whoever get him.
Yeah,
like, yeah, oh shit.
Yeah,
that's why I just like, bro, you all that fake ass shit, bro. Go ahead on, bro.
I'm telling you, man.
Like, yeah, but nigga, what all that fake shit, bro? You know what it is? I'm just like, bro, yeah, man. Go ahead on.
Somebody said they seen him in the car with the boy.
Huh?
I don't know how true it is. Somebody said they seen the boy killed in the car with him.
Gets the number one answer. Just go, number.
Yeah, who did he just told me?
In the car with him?
Yeah.
That's a fool there.
Yeah.
Somebody, man, they said he wrote the ball. Like, nah, they ain't came to no deal.
That what they say?
That was Boone said he heard, I think, one time. That was Boone asked, like, Johnny Brown came through here. Somebody told him there was something.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to find Fred told me on Trey Woman call.
And Your Honor, the spreadsheet, the state's not going to be playing 9:45 to 11 minutes.
Okay.
So I just focus on the first three. And for the 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 16 seconds, and he's talking with, I believe, Dewaskin Watt, right? A 30 Deep member. And he says, you know that those guys have a spot in Pittsburgh, part of the city of Atlanta. And he says, we need a spot like that we can roll out of. And so what the state believes they're talking about getting a trap spot, essentially, to where they can go and quickly navigate and go in and out of. The next portion, which is...
Okay, well,
Yes,
stop. And on that portion, is there any indication there that that's related to anything other than his own desire to be selling drugs.
So, Your Honor, there's another call which I don't think we've gotten to yet where Demekion Garlington.
Okay. That means you can't play this call because you have not established a foundation for this call yet. Whenever you get to Mr. Garlington, all right, maybe you should play it the other way around, unless this call is placed before that one in time. Then this call does not matter. It has no nexus, in my opinion.
Is talking with, I believe, Mr. Wright. I'll check my notes. And he's telling him you should sell your Percocets on Instagram. It's how you can get customers. And he's mentioning, we will get to this call. And he says SB, talking about defendant Stillwell, was basically successful of getting Percocets sold online and Instagram. We also have embedded that there's no, in this specific case, I don't have, and oftentimes you do not have specific, Garlington and Mr. Wright got a trap spot after this conversation and they put up a big sign that says this is.
So if you can't prove it, then it's garbage. Mr. Atkins, I'm very, very glad you are honest and don't put up the word salad like Hilton and Love does. But it's still garbage. Yes, Donovan Bullock says, this just show people selling drugs. It does not mean it's gang activity or RICO.
The YSL Trap House, we're going to give our proceeds to our fellow gang members. But it's the fact that they, there's some uniformity because there's a spot called The Web that's referenced in 2015 and also comes up when we get to Antonio Sumlin's wiretap in 2022. And so areas where they can operate freely and sell narcotics, or Waters Road is similar in terms of going, a lot of times there's firearms there as well, is a common theme. So to answer the court's question, I do not have specific evidence of Mr. Wright and Mr. Garlington after this conversation, getting another trap house spot. There is on Garlington's wiretap a trap spot where he's actively saying, hey, there's a new customer, go outside and come back, selling primarily or almost exclusively Percocet pills off of Moreland. But to answer the court's question with this specific clip, the states wanted to get this part in talking about we need a spot we can roll from, just like these.
Yeah. Red Bunny says, Nick, I agree to all one-shot objections over these calls. I'm so confused why Judge let any of them in. Makes me feel like she's just letting it in to say she allowed them to present their case. I don't know. This is the issue with RICO. The bar for presenting evidence in RICO is so bare minimum, it's practically non-existent. If the prosecution says it is evidence, then it's up to the judge to say no or yes. But the case law says that the prosecution has enormous power of being vague. And that is the issue with Georgia RICO Act. It's so broad and so vague, it's barely fathomable. For instance, and this is actual case law, I don't have it in front of me. The corporate, what constitutes associating with a criminal street gang can be spoken or unspoken. Yeah, that's it. That's how vague the connections can be. That is why you have all these unindicted co-conspirators. Because it is enough with an unspoken agreement between alleged from the prosecutor. That's all it takes. That's the Georgia RICO law. That's how vague it is written by Georgia legislators. So that's why we see the prosecutors in this case behaving the way they do, because they know they can be as vague as humanly possible, but it's still up to the judge's discretion to what is actually allowed in or not. And I do believe in this occasion, since Judge Whitaker hindered them quite a lot by refusing to let a bunch in this morning, she will allow other crap in the afternoon.
These other group people have in Pittsburgh.
And so what's overall the state's evidence that this is being done to the benefit of YSL?
So, Your Honor, the state's position in regards to that is Garlington discussing and trying to find or speak about other areas to where they could sell narcotics is in furtherance of the gang. I don't have a specific piece of evidence to point to the court. And
if it is in furtherance of the gang and he doesn't get these new spots, then how did it further the gang?
It's the state's belief that, inferences can be drawn by the jury in terms of if the state's alleging and putting forth evidence or arguing closing about the web or about Waters Road. This is a wiretap call that is very unlikely they would believe they would be ever heard, more or less introduced in a trial, talking about freely, we need to get a spot we can roll out of. So it gives some relevance to the state's assertion that these are trap houses versus just places that people hang out who are friends.
All right. Okay, you want to move on to whatever you were going to say about the next clip?
Yes, Your Honor. The next portion, which is 6 minutes to 8:24, Garlington is discussing B. Slime. Jaboris Greer is who we believe that he's referring to, and he also references Christian McMiller, who the state has addressed to the court. And so he's mentioning money that they gave him for his bond, talking about different amounts and so that has come up periodically from the state in argument or about paying for fellow, and both B. Slime and Christian McMiller, the state believes were YSL members. And so that portion is for paying of bonds of fellow gang members. And so the state, because in terms of why that specific conversation is in furtherance, he's discussing how much each gave. And so it's some cohesiveness in terms of Mr. Wright and Garlington speaking about the bond money he received.
Okay.
And the last one, Your Honor,
They're arguing wiretap.
Garlington starts, it's right around 8 minutes and 28 seconds, where he says, Holmes is definitely tripping with the Shell Kell stuff. And so Shell Kell is someone who's does come up periodically in this case in terms of a rival gang member. And so him discussing Mr. Wright in response to that says he doesn't mess with him. And they're discussing someone else in terms of talking tough, I believe, about what they would do to Shell Kell. But nonetheless, it's the fact that Shell Kell gets referenced quite frequently by the state. This
is bad. The Internet Archive got hacked. The Wayback Machine. I've used that a lot when looking for old articles and old case law and stuff like that. Well, in my line of work, which is labor law, because Swedish papers and they just tend to remove content after a while. So the Wayback Machine is very good at going back and looking at things from the internet's. So the Internet Archive got hacked. That is bad. That is real bad. Okay, back to the trial.
is a private conversation, and Shell Kell specifically will come up in other wiretap calls because Demikian Garlington makes reference in later wiretap calls to a song he made where he says, I have to change and take his name out of it because if something happens to that boy, they're going to think it's us.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the three portions the state want to play, Your Honor.
Okay. And those were generally just relevance objections, or is
to me, the way I'm analyzing this is the state needs to satisfy two separate tests based on my objections. It needs to be relevant, and then it needs to have a way that it's admissible through the rules of evidence beyond relevance. And I'm just not hearing it. I don't, your Honor asked what evidence they have, and then Mr. Atkins said, well, we don't have evidence of them being Garlington and I guess DeWaskin Wright is who they think this is, getting a trap spot and putting a neon sign that says for YSL. And I agree they don't have that, but they don't have a lot less either. That's kind of a straw man of what we're expecting. There's no indication at all that I've seen that Mr. Garlington is, now there's certainly an indication that he's selling drugs, but that his drug dealing exploits have anything to do with Mr. Stillwell. Other than he talks about selling people pills on the same phone that he happens to use to talk to Mr. Stillwell and other people, but that's not really a nexus. So again, so to me, all of what Garlington has going on, unless there's some link, is completely irrelevant, and it's also subject to 403. But on top of that, when we talk about, Mr. Atkins just brought up, and I'm having a little difficulty following the call, and what Mr. Garlington's saying, but about bond money. Okay, if Mr. Garlington's on a phone call talking about so-and-so paid so-and-so else's bond, the state needs to figure out, who's going to testify and provide live testimony to this with personal knowledge, because just talking about what other people have done in the past is not, to my understanding of the law, is not going to fall under a co-conspirator statement. So we have both those issues, and I just don't think that the explanation that the state gave really addressed either of them for this call.
Okay. So is all of the discussion about the money, that's, what is that? Is that everything in the past?
Yes, Your Honor. Garlington is discussing how much money they gave him for, I believe, his own bond in a prior case.
Okay. So it's his own first-hand knowledge about his own, what he got?
Correct, because he says B. Slime McMahon and B.
Garlington
Slime gave me
already
800 and
testified
McMahon gave me
that, no?
500.
Okay.
Well, he's not supposed to testify, right?
And how is them discussing that,
So,
furthering the conspiracy?
yes, Your Honor. So the narrative of past events can be in furtherance if it serves some present purpose. So the state's position is him discussing two other, who the state believes, or
That would
YSL
be
gang members
prior
paying for his
acts
bond,
brought into
fosters some
this. Yeah.
cohesiveness. He's talking with Mr. Wright, who is to the state's understanding, an allied gang of 30 deep, which Garlington, Mr. Copeland, and defendant Stillwell, the state sets forth, used to be a part of, and then it kind of became part of YSL. All that aside, that's the state's argument, is that him discussing this, of the money they gave him, fosters a present purpose of cohesiveness.
Cohesiveness with the allied gang?
Yes, Your Honor. Because the speaker, Garlington, he has to be a part of the same conspiracy as who it's held against. So the state's position is that YSL member Garlington is making that statement. That's the state's.
Okay, I don't think that one meets the
Yes, Your Honor.
conspirator exception. And then okay, was there any further argument on the shell kill portion?
From the state, Your Honor? Or
The defense? Anything beyond relevance on that?
I guess it would be the same objection about, I mean, the state articulated what their interest in this call is the fact that Shell Kell, in the argument they just made, Shell Kell's name just keeps getting brought up. Well, okay. I mean, even if that's true, his name keeps getting brought up. And even if to them that has some sort of relevance to the overall story they're trying to tell, we don't have a declarant at this point that is testifying. And I don't, there's no exception. I'm not trying to be smart, but to my understanding, there's no exception to the hearsay rule that, the state just gets to say, well, we think it's interesting that someone's name gets brought up a lot, so we want to admit it. I don't see how it falls under 801D2E or anything else. It's just, he's talking about past events, as I understand it. I have no idea if he's talking about past events he has personal knowledge of. My guess would be he probably doesn't, but that's speculation. So I just don't see how any of this is admissible. I guess I'm just keep going back to the fallback position. I'm arguing to exclude things, but the fallback position is we're not talking about live testimony here. We're talking about the state playing a tape wiretap. And to me, that requires them to jump through extra hoops, including how it falls under a hearsay exception, and they're just not doing it.
And so how is this part of this conversation in furtherance of the conspiracy?
So, Your Honor, the notes I have is Garlington. He says Holmes, talking about someone else who's not Mr. Wright, not Mr. Garlington, is definitely tripping with the Shell Kel stuff. And then Mr. Wright says, I don't mess with them, plural. But he's like, oh, yeah, I got something for him, whoever gets him. And he says, the guy is tripping. And he says, and then Garlington says, they got him, talking about the same male, in a car. They just seen the boy with him. Talking about this male he's tripping with the Shell Kel stuff because they think he's in a car with him. So it's the fact that they are concerned or discussing someone associating with Shell Kel that the state feels is relevant. I think there also is an argument here in terms of, because the state is not going to be articulating who this person is, there's a non-hearsay argument in terms of it's the fact that they're concerned someone's riding around with Shell Kel. And in terms of the truth of the matter asserted of is Holmes riding around with Shell Kel or not is not why the state's introducing it. It wants to show the jury how they're freely discussing someone who is possibly riding around with someone that they consider a rival gang member. That's the which in my mind falls under both, but almost is more applicable as non-hearsay because the state's not going to be arguing or asserting if this person actually is with Shell Kel or not. It's just the way they're talking about that.
Okay, but all right, so they're letting each other know then, though, that so here's this person, Holmes or whatever, that you need to be on the alert.
Hey, Catnut Williams, gifted 5 memberships to Mary Walton, Matt Rose, Gavin Guide, Kim Roberts, and JOK. Thank you so much. That brings us to 10 new members for this stream. And for you who wasn't here when I said it, I'm going to treat this stream like one of my old Friday casual streams, which means beer. And at one point, when we reach enough number of gifted membership, super chat, something like that, I have moonshine brought over from the United States. I have apple pie flavor. I have white chocolate flavor, and apparently no flavor. I think the number I said was 45. For every 45, I will have a shot of moonshine. That way we all can get through this nonsense from the state with our minds somewhat collective. All right, here we go. John Commune, 5 memberships to JRed3171, Ramonda Patras, Antonia Harris, Marima, and CB. That brings us to 15 new members for this stream. Wow, that's so nice. Thank you so much. And for you who was just gifted, you now have access to all the members-only perks, which includes members-only content on my channel, your own emojis, and access to my Discord. Yay! Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hanging with Shell Kel is this basically the...
That's how I interpret from listening to what they're saying, Your Honor.
All right. I think that would pass the 801, whatever it is, D2E test. Okay.
Your Honor, the next three go together. So PDF page number 3200, 3202, and 3206, which are reference numbers 3171, 3172, and 3177. They're all on April 9th. The first one is at 7:33 p.m. The second one is at 7:35 p.m. And the third one is 7:41.
Hold on. Just remembered something. Are these 2022 wiretaps? If so, 1, stop talking about your crimes. 2, no, I don't have a 2. Just stop. As Bruce Rivers say, stop self-snitching.
p.m. So they're in a span of 8 minutes. And the reason I wanted to give this backstory is because they all kind of play off one another. And so I'm going to, I don't know what the defense position on these calls, but I wanted to play them back to back to back. They're quite short, and then address the court.
All right. Well, is there going to be objection? Yes.
The same thing. It's relevance, and they appear. I think a fair reading of it is it appears to be Demekion Garlington involved in general criminality.
The state is going to play. The state's going to play PDF page 3200 first.
Okay.
Hello. What's up? You got a slide? What is that? They call you. Oh, they quit, man. I'm tripping. No, that's what we looking for right now. Damn. Where the hell you at? Right here with the ops. You with the who? Yeah, I'm with him, buddy. You know I ain't gonna talk on no phone. Hey, no. Oh, for real? Yeah, at the West End. At the West End? Yeah. Damn, man. Hey. And he ain't got no car. Your girl just pulled out in the car. For real? Yeah, that whole thing just pulled out. Damn, who that with him? Nobody up there by himself. He got something on him? No, I don't know. I just came up here gambling, but he just got the little jury on. All right, let me call you right back. All right.
Your Honor, we're now going to play 3202.
Hey, yeah, bro.
What's up? Oh, I just came to the house. I was on the block.
Oh, I'm right here riding through right here. I just got a car where Johnny got down around the way, so he got something on him.
For real?
Yeah, I thought you ran away. I was gonna come pick you up.
The sound gets the number one answer. Just go. Number.
I just left from this.
I know how that shit is. But you flying.
Hey, yeah, I'm in Panola.
Oh yeah, damn.
Hey, they say you ran around with it though.
Yeah, he at that gambling house. I ain't in no slide. I was just gonna get down. I'm finna see how I'm finna do this shit though. I'm finna get down. I probably need paper tag on them motherfuckers.
And just call let me know, man.
All
right.
Your Honor, the state's going to play 3206.
I need a jive translator. I mean, I heard what the prosecutor claimed was said. No clue if it actually said so. But I also know that Mr. Shard he's been listening to these wiretaps and jail calls. So if I trust Mr. Shard would have objected to the prosecutor being wrong.
I can't grow. Hello? Hey, you ain't got no iPhone, like? Yeah, nah. Why you say that? Nah, man, I don't want to talk on the phone. I was going to tell you something.
I'm gonna get peace. I'm gonna get peace up on right quick.
Vera's here.
Just like FaceTime, because they can't hear on that FaceTime shit.
FaceTime audio.
All right.
So, Your Honor, the 3200 is DeQuellis Boyer, who's Little Quill. He's the brother of DeMarco Boyer, who the state believes is affiliated with Paradise East PDE, an allied gang of YSL, and is the brother of the phone records we discussed in August with Boyer. This is his brother. And so the next call at 3202 is Antonio Sumlin, the gentleman whose tattoos and the gun we were discussing, who was a defendant who pled. And so the first call, Little Quill calls Garlington and says he's with the op.
Pleadings in this case means jack shit. Jack absolute shit.
And he says his girl just pulled off in the car. Peanut just pulled off. I believe he's talking about a female whose nickname is Peanut. And then Garlington's like, well, who's up there with him? And he says he's up there by himself. And he asks him, does he have something on him? And Little Quill says, I don't know. He has jewelry. I believe they're referring to, does he have a gun on him? And then 2 minutes later, he calls Antonio Sumlin, another YSL gang member. And he says, and the person they're discussing is named Johnny, who at the time in March 22 was having a public Instagram dispute with Garlington. So they had problems with one another. He says that boy Johnny is around the way. Sorry, my problem. Apologies, Madam Court Board. He says that boy Johnny has something on it. How far out are you? And then he says, they say he's riding around with it. And Garlington says, I'm not in a slider. I'm fixing to do this shit though. Paper tag on this mother effort. So what he's referring to is a slider is a car you can quickly go do a crime in. A paper tag, you can't get caught. And then literally that was at 7:35, Your Honor. At 7:41, he calls back the first gentleman, Little Quill, and he says, do you have an iPhone on you? I got something to tell you, but I can't talk on the phone. FaceTime me because they can't hear. And I believe when he says they, he means the police, law enforcement. They can't hear on that FaceTime shit. Mm-hmm. And then the call ends. And I believe so. The state, for one, you have 2 of the 3 murders in this indictment involve at least rental cars. And so the fact that he's talking about in a very short span of time,
What freaking rental cars? You mean the rental car that Woody drove and landed to threat and that he crashed and that the Hertz guys, to my recollection, didn't testify it was returned damaged? That rental car? This is so incredibly stupid. They are keep yapping away on those damn rental cars. And I tell you, to this day, on that surveillance video depicting the drive-by of Donovan Thomas, it's not an Infinity. The grill does not match. I don't care what their expert said. I really don't. That was a paid for opinion.
gets word that this opposition or someone he's beefing with, and then within a couple minutes, he's calling Antonio Sumlin to help him and referencing getting paper tags and a slider. The state feels this is certainly in furtherance of the co-conspirator for what the state feels are apparent reasons. And that's why the state wanted to address these 3 together, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to admit those over objection.
Yeah. At least, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay, so the state starts out by saying that this is Lil Quill is what I got, but last name Boyer, who's the brother of DeMarco Boyer, who's not charged in this case, and who no one really even heard of until 60 days ago. The fact that he's DeMarco Boyer's brother, to me, has no relevance. Mr. Atkins provided some context to this that I wasn't unaware of. I wasn't aware of, but apparently, according to the state, Mr. Garlington, as an individual, was having some sort of social media feud with a man named Johnny. One of Mr. Garlington's friends named Boyer, who is not this gentleman other than being on this Wiretap is not, to my knowledge, not mentioned anywhere in discovery. Calls Garlington, says, hey, I see this person that you're having some beef with, I guess. And then Mr. Garlington lays out his plan on what he's going to do to Mr. Sumlin. Again, I don't know it to be Mr. Sumlin. The state's saying it's Mr. Sumlin. I'm not doubting that. But what I just keep going back to, my client is in jail at this time. There's absolutely no indication that Mr. Williams is in contact with Garlington. Mr. Nichols is in jail at this time. I'm really struggling to figure out how I concede common sense listening to this call. It appears that Mr. Garlington is planning some sort of crime. I don't know what it is, a robbery or whatever he's planning on some gentleman, some individual he doesn't like. But what this has to do with the group at large, I'm completely lost on. And 401, 403, and then 401 and 403 seem to be major issues that would need to be addressed before these calls are admitted into evidence. And so I don't know. I think I concede. Of course, I don't represent this gentleman, but I concede that Mr. Garlington's involved in some criminality through these calls. But that's not really the issue. But it's going to lead to, my concern is a lot of confusion of issues here. And again, there'll be no one to cross-examine about some of these matters. Even when we get to the hearsay exception, sure, I concede that in certain contexts, asking someone to ride with you or to talk through a plan to get at one of your enemies, personal enemies, would be potentially an 801D2E situation if the conspiracy that's taking place here on this call was the conspiracy that is charged in this indictment, but it's clearly not. So I just don't see it, and I think it's going to be very confusing to the jury just to hear a conversation of two people who are not going to be testifying about some private animosity against some unknown person named Johnny.
Okay. State, want to make any further record?
Your Honor, the court would like further argument from the state. The state believes that the initial arguments set forth of for one, the first call is letting Garlington know that this person's up here. So it could have been anyone. It's the fact that he gets notified, and what does he do with that information? He immediately calls, essentially immediately, a couple minutes later, Antonio Sumlin, who is, again, someone who was charged in this indictment, pled, has YSL street gang tattoos on his body, and the state believes Garlington and Sumlin are both YSL gang members. And so Sumlin doesn't ask a lot of questions. He's, in that brief wiretap call, it's essentially,
Okay.
So the state feels that it's actively talking about going to shoot somebody between two YSL gang members together.
Okay. Thank you. All right, my ruling stands. All right, 3501 is our next reference number, I believe.
Okay, so apparently that is still in.
And will be PDF page 3534.
Okay, and I see, just so that I remind.
Hi, Tammy. No, not still going. I ended my previous stream at lunch. I took a nap, ate something, and now I'm back recapping the afternoon. So 2 streams today.
Well, let y'all know we need to circle back on this. I think we all just got a letter from Mr. Arnold.
Hey,
attorney.
Tia became a member. Thank you so much. Now you also have access to all my members only content and perks, which is your own emojis and access to my Discord. Oh, you had to renew. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm still saying that's a new one. That brings us to 16 members today. Yay. Thank you.
About scheduling, which I have not been able to read, but we need to figure out whatever she's saying about that and sort it out and get her an answer scheduling wise. So.
what Tia says here, her last one was gifted. And now she chose to pay for her own memberships, which is $3 a month. That means next time somebody gets gifted, Tia made room for another one to be gifted a membership. That is the beauty of paying it forward. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tia.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we're going to play something. Oh, and she gifted to Tiffany Rodriguez. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that brings us to 17 members of this stream. Thank you so much. Thank you. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much.
Your Honor, did the court want to keep going with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I just saw that come over the email, so I want to put it on our radar.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah.
And this call, 3543, this is referencing, this references what I discussed earlier about the jail, that they put Miles Farley in a room with Quay and Nard. So he says, Nard just called me 2 days ago. And this is in reference to what's going on in the jail. I can play it, but I just wanted to give that backstory context.
Okay. And so this is, what is this going to be? Trying to get him protection, like a conversation about that? Or what?
Yes, Your Honor. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling up my notes. Yeah, so this 3534 is Garlington speaking with Unfunk, who's Mr. Greer, was a defendant on this case and has pled. And they're discussing, Mr. Greer has spent some time in prison and was affiliated with the Goodfellas, the gang that, when I was discussing the Capo Frank. And so Garlington calls him and Mr. Greer says, hey, call him. And he says the mob in Nine Deuce, talking about the mob is also in reference to Goodfellas in Nine Deuce, which is part and parcel of the Inglewood family. YFN just jumped on Little Miles, and Garlington's like, for real? This is like when they're first learning about it.
Okay.
And then they say, hold on, let me start a three-way call. And he asked what floor on Rice Street. And then this sets off a cascade of events of trying to get to the bottom of who were these mob members in jail who teamed up with YFN to hurt Miles Farley.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know that I need to hear it. Is there objection to this? And if so, is it the same one voiced or one's voiced about the prior calls about getting protection for Miles and sorting that out?
It is, Your Honor.
Okay, my ruling would be the same then, so this is admissible. So then our next one is 3510, 3543. Okay,
And
this is the same thing?
It is, Your Honor. And so that statement summary that in the center, I'm going through these in terms of, I didn't bracket them by subject matter, so to speak, but this pertains to the same incident where they're trying to get a hold of the individual in the jail to help get to the bottom of what happened.
Okay. And I'm sorry, who's he talking to?
So in 3575, Your Honor, he's talking with So I believe he's talking with Tinquarius Nard Minder, who is incarcerated at the time, is also the individual who was rooming with Mark Wavis Huey.
So basically, do the next 4 or 5 all have to do with this, or 6?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So they are relevant. However, can you get that story in without using 11 or 12 different wiretaps?
Yes, Your Honor. I will look at all of these and see how to coherently get that through with as.
Okay, so
not
take a
all
look
these
at the
calls.
ones, that we already addressed, as well as these next. It looks like at least 6, right? And pick a few and let's just use those and not we don't need probably every little detail of all of it.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So narrow. Okay, so then that would take us to, well, I guess
769, Your Honor.
looks like it's still the same thing?
So this is a little different.
Okay. What's this one?
So give me 1 second, Your Honor.
Okay.
This, I'm finding my notes, but this is when he's speaking with whose nickname is Bobby Hunt, Khalif Adams, and who was a defendant on this
Sorry.
indictment. I'm going to pull up my notes,
Something in my throat.
or transcript, I should say. Yes, Your Honor. It's the call I was thinking of. He's speaking with Khalif Adams, who's in prison, speaking on a contraband phone.
Okay.
And the state's going to play this call for the court.
Yo,
Yo,
what it do, twin?
what's up?
What you got going?
See, I just woke up.
Your phone, yeah, your phone was ringing. That nigga Newton down there with you. You at Hayes, ain't
No, they came down
you?
here.
Yeah. He had to come up.
Oh, they just told me. That's what they just told me came down
They
here.
got him on the tail too, though.
Yeah, probably get my
You
shot.
can get him out there.
He can't come out here with all that fun bunny shit. He fuck up all my
Nah, I
shit.
already told him that. I already told him. I said, bro, got down.
But
You
then
know, he don't be on no bullshit unless it comes to him, though. You know, I was just in the dorm with him, bro. He be chilling. Only reason, like, he gonna go is, like, you know, they was on him on that other shit, saying he did that with brain, you know.
no, that's it, man. My shit.
Yeah, they were saying that about Shawty, like, I asked you about the shit, you feel me? Like, no paperwork.
Yeah, there's mob niggas in here right now, too.
Huh?
There's so many mob niggas in the dorm.
You said so many?
It's something about 8 of that. That shit ain't too much.
Yeah, but them niggas a buck, what for sure. But yeah, I don't got down though. Like, yeah, he like, bro, this shit high as fuck now. He told, bro, I need a tablet. He like, man, tell Hunt, man, I got down. He trying to pay for a tablet.
Yeah, I'm finna see. They Puerto Rico come Monday for each other. It's Tech Squad will come Monday for each other.
You say you got what?
I said
There is I cannot translate this. I'm barely keeping up with a quarter of what the words actually are.
Tech Squad supposed to come Monday for the tablet.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, so I'm really gonna see how they work their move money, and I know what I can do for his
Yeah. But you over the whole all what the hell you over here Hunt?
Huh?
I said, what the hell you over, like, what you over the camp or you over goddamn all this shit?
No, signs down a lot of shit.
What you talking about? you be talking you even talking to poke ass?
I haven't talked to nigga.
What
I've been talking to 20 of them, man.
20.
I've been talking to 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I stay talking to the clock. I don't be talking say what?
I talk to Clock at him up down there, but I also been doing a little bit.
He don't know what little who?
Huh?
You say he don't know what little who?
Yeah, one of my little brother.
Oh, okay. Man, he saying, man, it be back locked up.
How they get locked up?
One of them niggas had got.
Yeah, but I thought he got out from that shit.
Nah, he didn't get out.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, I'm gonna pull up on the nigga. The tilt oil back there. That work. He worked back here. The tilt oil live in my dorm. What dorm he say he was in?
I had a DM to say, hold on, let me see. I didn't say he ain't got down.
It seems like Hurricane Milton is now making landfall. Seen it over X and elsewhere. Be safe, folks. Get to higher ground. Get away from the coastlines. Well, it's kind of too late now because now it made landfall. Now, I've seen earlier that they expect certain areas to have 12 feet or more storm surges, and a wider area up to 10 feet, and some areas, basically the entire, what is it? Almost all the way up to the bend, down to, well, it's hundreds of miles of storm surge. And I saw something extremely stupid. Up until a couple of hours ago, there were still people at the beaches. Are they actively trying to get a Darwin Award? And it's not if it was just them. But these people have families. There still has to be resources searching for them. Yeah, I don't know. But keep Florida in your prayers and everything. Yeah, it's not much we can do now.
G1 106.
Something pull up on those food in the morning.
I'm gonna tell that nigga he
G1 what?
G1 G1 106.
I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm sending food back there.
Alright,
I'm sending back food back there. He needs hygiene too.
yeah, you know you probably need all that.
Yeah, I'm sending some of that shit back there.
Alright,
Put that camera from nigga in G1. Let's fuck all that, nigga.
when he call me, I'm gonna try to call you.
Yeah, I'm up now.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor, that is the entirety of the call. I'm not sure what specifically defense objection is to this portion.
My objection are similar to the ones that regarding this subject matter of Mr. Farley's in jail and people are messing with him. So those previously stated objections.
So you had, Mr. Atkins said that there was some different subject matter than just that in this call.
So yes, Your Honor. So at the time of this call, I believe he's in Hayes prison and says he's in Hayes, if I'm not mistaken. But Khalif Adams, Garlington's calling Khalif Adams and is describing who I believe is John Quavius Hood, a 30 Deep member. He's coming to prison, and Mr. Khalif Adams is a high-ranking member in prison. And so that's why when Garlington's asking him, what are you over? Like just your cell, your row? And he's like kind of saying, I'm over a lot of stuff, and I can get him a tablet, as in a contraband tablet, what the price is. And so he's trying to get clarity on when John Quavius Hood is getting to the prison that Mr. Adams is at. And so Garlington, and Khalif Adams was indicted on this case. He's an indicted co-conspirator. And so you have Garlington speaking with him of basically how to facilitate helping someone transition to prison or get items that they need. And so the easy access between prison and someone on the outside, who's Garlington, and helping either friends of YSL gang members or associates have a smooth transition to prison and be set up or squared away, the state believes furthers the conspiracy.
And who is it that they're going to set up? Who's about to show up at the same prison?
Mr. John Quavius Hood is who the state believes that they're discussing.
So John Quavius Hood is someone that I'm not familiar with that name from this case. I have heard the name before, but not involved in this case, not in this discovery. So again, I don't, and Khalif Adams can, claim that he's running things in prison. I would love to ask him some questions about that because that's a pretty easy claim to make. I don't anticipate that he's going to be testifying. So I won't be able to ask those questions, but I don't understand to the extent that we're going beyond the Miles Farley situation, what Demekion Garlington calling Mr. Adams, who's claiming to run the prison that he's at, to get a tablet for Jonquavius Hood, has anything to do with any of this.
Okay, how are you establishing Hood being relevant to this?
So, Your Honor,
Gigi, I have a question here. So far, has anyone from the state said the evidence will show? I think the last time we heard that was in Ms. Love's opening statement. I think that's the last time we heard that. Including motions, including non-jury days, where they argue evidence. And remember, it was on opening statements. The first motion for mistrial came along because Ms. Love tried to enter that slideshow, of which she handed over four slides to the defense and then had 47 slides, which she tried to sneak in. Not even Glanville could excuse that. Thank you, Daryl Johnson, for $10. Says thank you for your views. I can always relate to your perspective. You, like Kat, make this a community. Thank you so much. Yeah, me and Kat share a good bunch of the same community, and she has great research skills. Great. I mean, I have in the background here, I have my notes, but I can't keep up with her. I really can't. So yeah, watching us both probably gives you two different perspectives of the same shit show. We are a hybrid gang. Kat, we should have a joint stream called the Hybrid Gang. Oh, that's so good. No, don't tell love. No. I went to Atlanta. Love didn't catch me. Oh.
It's twofold. For one, Mr. Hood's, again, this is from, listening with and talking through what is being said with APD gang detectives. So with the investigators on this case in terms of what's being said, who are these individuals? And so Mr. Hood is affiliated with 30 Deep, which was what Demekion Garlington used to be.
Okay.
And he's speaking with Khalif Adams, who again was an indicted co-conspirator on this case. And so not only is there some level of, in the case law, in terms of cohesiveness among, someone on the outside with one call speaking to a fellow co-conspirator on the same indictment in prison to help, whether you say that he's doing this for his friend, Mr. Hood, or an allied gang member, that conversation they're having.
All right, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I understand it, but given that this is not even an alleged YSL member, but some affiliated gang, I'm going to exclude that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Hey, excluded.
Okay, what's our next one?
This is one thing I like about this Atkins guy. He just accepts it and moves on. Because he has seen for 11 months plus Miss Love infuriating two judges. Now, Judge Glanville, we already know he had no spine and allowed it. Judge Whittaker is a bit more firm. And I do believe that is why, because Miss Love already knows she pissed off the judge, especially with that absolutely moronic motion where she tried to get the judge to hinder the defense from making 403 objections. And yeah, so I do believe it's a bit of a tactic from Miss Love to allowing Mr. Atkins to argue this in front of the judge in hopes to get in more. And maybe it's the correct choice. But then again, he accepts the judge's ruling, which she would never have done.
Next one, Your Honor, is going to be, so PDF page 4082 falls into the same category in terms of there's two sections we wanted to play about discussing the mob and 9 Deuce jumping on Miles Farley. And then there's also a portion that discusses this song that Garlington had. And so let me get my notes and play that portion.
For fuck's sake. Are there song lyrics again? Again? Aren't we done with that garbage?
Because it's different than the subject matter of the jail. So I'm going to play, Your Honor, 149 to 250 on PDF page 4082.
Something interesting showed up here. It's Sleuthy on X saying the Brian Koberger jury trial will begin on August 11th. I guess that is, and will end on November 7th. So that is actually a quadruple murder trial that will last for 3 months, including the penalty phase, if necessary. I assume that includes jury selection as well. So less than 3 months for a quadruple murder case. And here we are 11 months later, almost. We have in 11 months, we have had, if we get to day 153, this trial will have been 5 full trial months. 5 full. It took 11 months for this trial to reach 5 full trial months. And a quadruple murder will take less. And I've been checking that for some time, checking that out. I don't think I would cover it, but there are some really strange thing about that case. Really, really strange things. So it will be interesting to watch, but I don't think I can cover it because it's too much. And also, this trial might still be going. Daryl Johnson became a member. Yay! Thank you. That brings us to 18 new members during this stream. So we are we're getting closer to you watching me have a shot of moonshine. I think I said 45 members or the equivalent in super chats and PayPal and gifted memberships. So we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Either way, not necessary, but thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Fuck with the studio? Yeah. I've been fucking around. I really just need to. I feel like the same shit, really. Like, nigga just hopping on songs and shit. But I got a coach song by myself, but nigga, man, me and Cole got down. We got the little song. Man, these folks fucking with this motherfucker. We ain't dropped it yet, but we really got to we gotta redo the shit so we can got down take the pain. Yo. I what? You said who else on it with you? Look, Cole, my cousin, they got that. That be hard. Yeah, that motherfucker's too hard. Them folks, that dog got that motherfucker. I'm gonna add dog back that motherfucker. Damn, man.
So, Your Honor, this specific portion is this exercise with the wiretap started with specifically exclusively co-conspirator statements, but this really is for a non-hearsay purpose. And there is multiple calls where Garlington is discussing this song he made, where there's like two versions. One version he's like directly referencing and probably dissing Shelkel, and so he keeps saying I got to take his name out of it. So this is one of those. The state wasn't going to play or not intend to play multiple of those calls. So this specific portion is for a non-hearsay purpose of the way that Garlington is cognizant of what is in a song that's publicly released and how that can impact law enforcement. Because the general theme, and I don't have on the top of my head the other calls where he mentions this. I have them in my notes, but not readily accessible. He says stuff along the lines of if something happens to him. So he's like, we got to redo the song. We got to take his name out of it so that it's not as overt or clear in case something happens to him. And so that was the purpose of why the state wanted to introduce this. Whether he made the song or not make the song, I do not know. But the fact that he is discussing and aware of, don't say too much. Like he wants to make it realistic, but not too realistic because he can get in trouble if something happens to him.
If, maybe, dun-da-da. Seriously? How? Well, I already explained to you guys why they are this vague. It's because the Georgia RICO Act allows it.
That person.
Okay.
So are we going, is this call off the sheet that was sent? Because I'm seeing on the screen it said 4062. On this it says 4082. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
No, you're correct, Mr. Sharp. It's reference number 4046, PDF page 4082, and there's two time hacks. So the 1 minute and 49 seconds to 2 minutes and 50 seconds was this portion. There's another portion that references what happens in the Fulton County Jail. But I just played the portion that because I wanted to highlight it's not a co-conspirator statement. The state's not alleging it's for a non-hearsay purpose.
Maybe it might be my eyes failing me. I thought when I just looked up at the screen, it said we were playing 4062.
No, that's 4082.
Okay, my eyes are failing me. Good to know. So I don't, again, having to change. We're not talking about Mr. Garlington saying, okay, I'm about to go harm, as I understand it, Mr. Watts, or hey, let's plan to go harm Mr. Watts. From my understanding of the call and explanation given by the state, it's I made a song and I need to take out references. So if something happens to him, I don't get blamed for it. Not seeing the hearsay link, and certainly I understand that the state or the hearsay exception, and I understand the state saying it's not hearsay, but Mr. Garlington saying I made a song with reference to Kelvin Watts. I don't know how that's not for the truth of the matter asserted. I mean, to make the point the state is trying to make that lyrics need to be changed for it to make any sense to the jurors, they would have to accept the first part of that statement, which is I made a song with Kelvin Watts, references to Kelvin Watts in it. They would have to accept that for the truth of the matter asserted for any of this to make any sense. So I believe it is hearsay, and it doesn't fall under any exceptions.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be objecting also.
and maybe I'm wrong, but these conversations have to speak for themselves. It seems like the state would be violating 24-7-704B if they're relying on an investigator to come in and talk about the mens rea or the intent or the meaning of these words. I understand that an expert may be able to talk about a certain phrase or a code word, and that's under Blash, B-L-A-S-H versus State, 318 Georgia, 325. It's in Division 4, 898 Southeast 2D522, 2024 case. But if what Mr. Atkins is saying is that the investigator, I'm assuming is Investigator Viverito, will be listening to a recording and then explaining to the juries the meaning. I have an objection to all of these. I know I have no standing because Mr. Williams is not on these wiretaps, so I've been relatively quiet, but I will be objecting that the investigator gives some overall closing argument for the prosecution to say this is what's going on. So I didn't want, and you're making rulings, and I wanted you to take that into consideration if you don't mind.
All right. Were you saying that one of the detectives or investigators is going to say, here's what all of this meant?
So this wiretap and on the state's witness list, this evidence of the wiretap is in Detective Viverito's folder. So
Right.
she is who is going to be, and we have the T3 custodian who is going to, the state intends to lay the foundation for admissibility.
Okay.
But these wiretaps will be introduced through or published when Investigator Viverito is on the stand.
Okay. But is she then going to interpret them?
So, Your Honor, could the state get back to the court in terms of
I would assume this is the state trying to include narration again. We had that with Belknap when he narrated a bunch of jail calls, which was, it's simply, you're not allowed to narrate since it is the jury who is the fact finders. It is their ears that determines what is said, not the person on the stand.
I don't want to misspeak to the court about what, different members of the team prepare different witnesses. So I don't want to, if you can give me a brief moment in terms of what, I don't know exactly what Investigator Viverito is going to be testifying to. What I was referencing is in terms of who, for example, if she's a gang expert who can rely on hearsay in terms of, as any expert can,
Yeah.
who is Bob Smith? Bob Smith is XYZ, right? I know he's a member of this group because I personally seen him or arrested him or whatever she says. And I know it's different depending on what she's talking about. But in
Right.
terms of, I would like more time to accurately brief the court on this issue that Mr. Steele just brought up. If that's all right with the court.
Okay. But you hadn't already said that. I mean, that's
Said what part, Your Honor?
it. Your argument for this portion coming in didn't have anything to do with that, right?
Not for him change. No. And in terms of this specific clip, he doesn't use the word shell kill. So like this short 40-second term, I believe that's what he's referring to because of other wiretaps. But we've obviously reduced the amount of wiretaps we're introducing. And so I believe this one kind of speaks for itself in terms of.
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yes, Your Honor.
is you're just going to have the jury listen to this, and then you might argue later what it meant or didn't mean. But there's not going to be a witness who gives their rendition of what it meant or didn't mean.
For specifically this taking the name out of the song,
Yes.
I don't believe she was, and that's why I don't want to misspeak because I don't.
Okay.
I will confirm, but the state's intent was believes this specific portion of I need to take his name out of the song somewhat speaks for itself, but
It's
All right,
a
so then,
fucking song. It means absolutely nothing. It's a song. And an update. This is an hour ago. Fort Myers Beach. Margaritaville facing north towards Times Square. This is an hour ago. Yeah, and it's not. You're in for a rough evening and night. That part of Florida. It's not getting any better for a number of hours. Be safe, folks. Get to high ground if you haven't gotten out of there already.
Mr. Steele, I'm not sure I'm following your 704 objection.
I don't hear the word shell cow, so I assume that somebody, the state's going to have somebody, I assume it's the investigator, Viverito, say what they're talking about. And
Okay.
no
Well,
witness can get into someone else's mental
that's
state.
what I'm trying to get a handle on, is whether this is going to be some other witness who then says, here's what I think this meant, or whether the state's simply going to let the jury hear it and then later they're going to argue, here's the state's theory on this, because those are definitely two different things.
Yes, Your Honor. And to be clear, I mean, what happens quite frequently, and AP gang detectives and investigator Viverito, who is listed as a gang expert, could discuss, is how what's said in songs, whether true or not true, impacts what happens in reality in terms of the cases, the shootings, someone dissing someone and what response. So if that the jury can combine evidence in the trial to make a determination. I do not believe investigator Viverito on this. We play this portion and she says, I'll tell you 100%, Garlington's talking about Shell Kel, and the song was titled XYZ, and there was two versions. That's not what I understand she will be speaking about. On this specific point, and it might be because Mr. Garlington was arrested at some point. I don't know exactly what song he's talking about. It's just the fact that he's cognizant of and careful of what he puts in songs.
Okay.
So on that specific part, I wanted to make that part clear, Your Honor. And in terms of,
So we have this case where the district attorney gets in front of the press and says, Mr. Williams shouldn't have been putting these things in songs.
Okay, but what the district attorney said in front of the press is not come into this trial.
Well, they're trying to use lyrics, but then when someone says, well, I should take lyrics out of a song in case something happens, then all of a sudden it's scandalous. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, how could Mr. Garlington, if it was relevant to anything, how could him saying, maybe I'll not put this song out here in case, not saying, oh, because we're about to do something to this man, in case something happens to this man, which is not named. And so I don't want to take that away from Mr. Steele's argument. It is not named who that person is. Somehow that's indicative of guilt too. It's like.
Your Honor, are we allowed to, the court's question specifically regarding.
Miss Love, we were having such a nice time here without hearing your yapping voice. We had why did you have to ruin it? We enjoyed having Mr. Atkins mumbling barely some legal arguments. Why did you have to stop speaking? We were having such a good time. We were having fork YouTube fork, nothing else. Fork.
The 704 issue. I didn't understand Mr. Shart's response just now to speak directly to it. And I just want to make sure that we're addressing exactly what the court asked us to address just a moment ago. Could the court tell us in the context of what Mr. Shart just said?
I don't think Mr. Shart was addressing the 704. I think he was addressing what his earlier objection was, which is sort of, well, y'all heard it. I'm not going to rephrase it. Well, okay. And then I guess one thing that Mr. Shart did say is, how is this really a non-hearsay purpose? Don't you have to sort of accept a part of it as for the truth?
So, Your Honor, the state, my understanding of this portion in terms of whether it's Garlington discussing removing words in a song. I'm not, he says it like definitively, I had to redo it and take his name out of it. So in my mind, the truth of the matter would be like Demekion Garlington changed the name and made a new version, but it's the way that he is cognizant of what he's saying and how it could implicate him. And part of, from the state's position and kind of what Mr. Shart was alluding to, is you want to get close to the line, but you don't want to say like, I went to 300 Main Street on May 4th at 2:42 p.m. in a red Corvette and I shot Bob Smith in the head. That's too obvious. You could get, if you actually did that. So you may say, you may allude to it, but you don't want to be so obvious with it that law enforcement says, well, yeah, we have you on camera in that exact same car at that exact same time. So it's a little bit of a gamesmanship in terms of publicly discredit someone else so that they know what you're talking about, but there's some plausible deniability if something happens to them where it's just a reference or a allusion to it. So Yes, Your Honor, you may.
Really, they got now. I really been like,
Fuck with the studio.
yeah, I've been fucking around. I really just need to. It's still like same shit, really. Like, nigga did hopping on songs and shit. I got a co-song by myself, but nigga, man, me and Cole got down. We got the little song. Man, these folks fucking with this motherfucker. We ain't dropped it yet, but we really got to reach. We got to reach.
Yeah, I don't understand crap. So I'm just going to skip ahead and listening to the lawyers arguing about it instead. Now, if you guys have heard any of these and say, oh, you need to listen to that portion where we actually hear what they are saying, give me a timestamp and I will play it. But until then, I'm skipping.
That's essentially what it, I mean, I was just going to ask, is the summary of it, that's essentially what it says?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the purpose of it would be consciousness of guilt, what?
So it's a number of things. One, Mr. Copeland is telling Garlington, you better be careful on social media because I just.
Why wasn't this played during Copeland then? If Copeland is the one talking, why wasn't this introduced at that time? If he is doing the talk, Jesus Christ.
Just talked to, I believe he's talking about Mr. Sledge, said it was a 43-man RICO indictment. This jail call, or not jail call, this wiretap call is April 23rd, 2022. So the indictment was made in 2022. And there's another call we haven't gotten to yet on Antonio Summers, where he's basically saying this Copeland is in jail, in prison, gang task force, there's some issues in jail. And they're coming at him. So someone says, I'll also talk to Copeland. He says, basically, this YSL stuff is hot. And we better fall back. It's actually another male calling someone, referencing the conversation. And so, to me, it's the co-conspirator statement and furtherance of the conspiracy was Copeland and Garlington by warning him that, hey, they don't know if it's true or not.
Right.
It's the timing and what they're discussing is pretty close to when this indictment came out. It wasn't 43, but it was 28. But nonetheless, it's him warning him, hey, be careful. That's what Sledge just told him.
Okay. Any objection to this evidentially?
Mr. Shard.
Your Honor, relevance, again, we're talking about two individuals that are not sitting here at trial, and I don't believe that they purport to be speaking on behalf of anyone here at trial, and any motivation they would have would be self-preservation. So I believe it's hearsay, but leave it with the court.
Okay, well, it is hearsay, but I think this comes in under the co-conspirator exception, admitted.
We only have one more from Mr. Garlington's wiretap, which is reference number 4959, PDF page 5000. And we believe this, Mr. Garlington is speaking with the same Mr. Wright we had discussed earlier. And we're going to start at 28 seconds and play to 1 minute and 41 seconds.
Okay, well, is it accurately summarized? Is that the gist of what I need to know?
Yes, Your Honor. This is the call I had referenced earlier when we were discussing drug sales.
Okay, is there an objection?
Yes, this is exactly what I was talking about. Garlington is selling drugs on his own to fill his own pockets and has nothing to do with my client. Garlington claims that my client, who at the time of this call is in jail, mind you, so it's nothing that's happening as they're speaking.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, it seems to me that we've got plenty of evidence here that lots of people in jail have access to phones and social media and what have you. So
Point well
that may or
taken.
may not.
Point well taken. All right, so, but he is just basically almost jealously or saying, boy, I wish I could sell drugs on the internet as well as Shannon used to, or as far as I've seen
At
Shannon
some
do.
unknown time period.
Yeah,
they
right.
have.
And
Okay.
so, you know, I'm not acknowledging that Shannon was selling drugs in 2022 on the internet, but even if he was, that has nothing to do with what Garlington has going. This is actually proof that Garlington and Shannon aren't some unified drug dealing organization. And so Garlington's just saying, yeah, I don't know how Shannon does it, and I wish I could do it, and this is what I would do. I mean, it's hearsay. It's not in furtherance of any conspiracy. It's bad character evidence, and it's irrelevant.
Your Honor, I think this kind of falls into also the category of a declaration against interest in terms of their discussing amongst each other their drug sales, how to sell more Percocets, and he's like, you should try putting it on Instagram. And so in terms of getting through a hearsay objection, the state feels the most applicable exception to what they're talking about, which is selling Percocet pills, is there's some indicia of reliability because they're making statements that, you know, if it was that Mr. Wright and Mr. Garlington is against their interest to be discussing. And so in terms of if they're being, so that's the state's primary argument is, you know, discussing how to better sell narcotics and talking about their own narcotics and essentially dealing and how to boost sales, basically.
The thing
Well,
about
I suspect that Mr. Sharp's problem with it is not the two of them discussing it. It's the mention of Mr. Stillwell and his alleged methods for selling illicit drugs.
correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so,
The state, so his objection is it bad character or?
well, I mean, it's.
Well, the declaration, and we litigated this on a different matter, but the state tried to argue declaration against penal interest. The thing about declaration against penal interest is you're allowed to declare things against your own penal interest. What you're not allowed to do is declare things against other people's penal interest.
Well, that
and-
doesn't get it in.
Right. And so that's my issue.
So it's essentially, yeah, just the kind of gratuitous mention of what Mr. Stillwell might be doing. Like, where's the foundation for,
So, Your Honor.
why, or not the foundation, but the exception that lets that part in?
In terms of it being bad character?
And hearsay.
So the state feels that Garlington making that statement, I guess, and I could be wrong, my mind, him discussing how Mr. Sharp's client is successfully selling Percocets on Instagram and how Mr. Wright needs to try that strategy is wrapped up in my mind in the same, he's making that statement about their own drug dealing. And so I view it, and the court may view it differently, but I view it in that bucket of a statement against interest. It's part and parcel of that.
Let me listen to it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Skipping ahead.
They have run
And it's another call.
right there. They have run service.
Skipping ahead.
All right.
Not play this.
Okay.
Upon further consideration, the state cannot play this.
Okay.
I'm thinking through what Mr. Sharp said and my thoughts, and so
All right.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Yeah. The one thing that Mr. Atkins does that nobody else seems to be mentally capable of on that bench over there, the prosecution's bench, admit when they're wrong. It's still shit evidence they get in, but at least once in a while he can say, oh, I was wrong.
So that's the end of the Garlington wiretap, I believe. And who's the second wiretap?
it's Antonio Sumlin. He's in a little different category because he's someone the state intends on calling at trial.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Should we need to address this right now, or?
I don't believe we do, Your Honor, because a lot of his call, I mean, there is some that I believe are co-conspirator statements, but he's also a testifying witness. So some of these are going to be more an impeachment.
Okay. All right.
It's up to the court, Your Honor.
Well, I mean, obviously,
Well, if he is a testifying witness, they have to lay foundation, and they can only do that via the testifying witness.
some of these say, and a lot of these say entire call, and I don't know exactly the length or substance of what an entire call is, but it seems like if it's to impeach, then depends what he's saying, and maybe I do need to know beforehand what's on there to know whether it's actually impeachment or not.
Yes, Your Honor. And I guess I should be clear. The state believes that these 9 that we included, if Mr. Sumlin was not testifying, the state's position is they are co-conspirator statements. I just wanted to highlight that, unlike Mr. Garlington, we are expecting him to be called.
Okay.
So we have 9 highlighted, so we can turn to Mr. Sumlin's if the court wants, Your Honor.
Okay. Let me cross out the ones that y'all aren't intended to use for any purpose anymore.
I agree, Eric Ross. Everything here tells us they get a whole playbook on how to put folks in jail with 0 evidence.
Okay, so of the 9 that the state might end up using, so let me ask the state. So you expect to question Mr. Sumlin and have him essentially testify as to the substance or whatever it is that you wanted, you just expect to get it in through his testimony, and only if he doesn't testify as expected, would you then turn to these, or what?
We would be asking him about what is in those calls.
Okay.
I think it might be helpful to litigate them, but then it would just be impeachment. I don't know whether there are any particular objections to the subject of these calls. So it can't hurt to-
I guess maybe we'll find that out first. So these 9 calls that might potentially get offered.
Well, the premier question is, will they actually show the witness these calls first? Or will they just ask, like they do with the jail calls or with the police interviews, did you not say this and this? Who the fuck remembers? And then they can play it. It's so much garbage here.
Is there going to be objection to any of these? To the substance within them, or?
So, as I understand what we're saying, is it's kind of like the Quindarius Zachary prior statements, where the state's not going to seek to admit these, but just as impeachment, and we just want to know if the subject matters are off, should be off limits in our view. Is that?
So, I think so. If they end up being offered, is there going to be some? Assuming they would be properly offered for impeachment, is there some other objection?
And Your Honor, I'll also say, just to make it clean, we should probably proceed as if we're going to offer them, because even if the witness is testifying, they are still admissible co-conspirator statements. So rather than mix those 2 together, we'll treat them like we're just going to offer these 9.
Okay. All right. Let's take a quick restroom break, and then we'll come back. Let's take 10 minutes, come back at 3 and tackle these.
Okay. And skipping ahead. That's the good thing with recaps. I can always skip ahead. Why are the World of Doom showing up?
Bless you.
Now, since there is no court tomorrow, I'm not sure what I will do tomorrow. Give me suggestions. Do you want another rewind of some moron that was testifying badly? Or maybe I should update you on the Adelson case, because now all Donna Adelson, all of her attorneys is now disqualified. So that trial is moved forward indefinitely. Because whatever team she gets next has to be caught up with everything. And it is a crap show. And yeah, I think I will try to update you on the Adelson thing, because How do you not? Because she wanted to use the same lawyers as her son did, Charlie Adelson. And they forgot to get his permission to do that. And that was displayed to the judge 5 or 6 days before the trials should have started. So yeah, I think Adelson tomorrow. Adelson, yeah. Decided, Adelson tomorrow. Oh, Dan Markel's birthday today. Yeah, then it should be reasonable. Tell the
I'm sorry,
story
it's
about
still cold
Dan
in here. I'm
Markel.
trying to get it adjusted, but I think they just got sick of the message that they needed to turn it down more, and they got really extreme with it. For everybody, no, Mr. Williams. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Mr. Williams, there she is. Can y'all approach for a minute?
We got a sidebar, folks. We got a sidebar. Sidebar counter 288. We got a sidebar. During emotions hearing. We got a sidebar during emotions hearing. Oh. Well, now back.
And their tasks. And actually, stateside, while they're doing their tasks, if y'all have had I don't know if y'all have had a chance to look yet about what Ms. Merchant sent, but it sounds like.
Oh, Miss Merchant sent something. I hope it was a picture of her doing this towards Adrian Love. Now, for you who don't know, Adrian Love suggested that they might call Ashley Merchant to the stand regarding her client in this shit show. I would love for Miss Love to call Miss Merchant to the stand. Now, there are lawyers, and then there are lawyers. We saw a bunch of people, witnesses represented by public defenders. Miss Merchant is not a public defender in that regard. She's vicious. And she would outplay and outbitch Miss Love 8 days a week. I would love that Miss Love called Miss Merchant to the stand.
Okay, y'all can take a look at that now. Sounds like she just wants the couple of things she asked before, which is that amount of notice into honor and leaves. So I don't know if y'all got an idea, when you want that witness, but y'all can be looking at that maybe at the same time.
Oh. Okay, skipping ahead. Seems like they are working on something.
Ultimately,
Ah,
Do we know answer?
now something happened.
Question asked?
I assume it's going to be the same answer for everyone. Ultimately, if one person wants to be there, and so I think the group answer is that the clients are going to be present or would like to be present.
Okay. This is about tomorrow's meeting. All the defendants wants to be present for that meeting.
Then it will need to. We can do that tomorrow and it'll need to take place in the courtroom, but I mean, this is not really a part of the trial. So it's just a gigantic in chambers conference with everybody here, but not actually in chambers because we don't have the capacity to meet in chambers with this number of people. So, okay. All right, so that'll be our plan for tomorrow. It will be recorded, but it will not be a part of these trial proceedings exactly. It's just a meeting. Okay. All right, so that is settled then. So that's what we'll plan to do in the morning. And then frankly, if we get finished with that, I don't know if y'all have gotten together.
Yeah, so the decision to have tomorrow as a in-chambers meeting came right after Miss Merchant's letter. But the meeting has nothing to do with this trial, according to the judge. I have no idea what that means. Because if it involves the defendants, the lawyers, and the prosecution, how does it not have bearing on this trial? I have no idea. Is there an appellate case going on? Well, that should also have impact on. I have no clue why they are calling everybody to a meeting about this trial if it's not about this trial.
Yet on where everybody is with regard to what you think has come in as evidence and what hasn't. But that would be another thing that's not really, it's more organizational, but that needs to get done that y'all could also do tomorrow. Okay, and then I would imagine, be back for trial proceedings, non-jury, on Friday. I don't think we're gonna get through everything today, but okay. All right, well, let's at least keep plugging along. So on these Sumlin 9 wiretap portions, is there a defense objection to any of them? And if so, which? Don't everybody speak at once. Maybe that means there's no objection. Or there would be no objection. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Your Honor. I have some objections. I'm going on the assumption that I guess when I'm voicing my objections, and correct me if I'm wrong or you'd like me to do it differently, Your Honor. I'm going on the assumption that Mr. Sumlin is testifying, and the foundation for hearsay is laid. Is that?
So, I mean, I guess the last thing Ms. Love said before the break makes me sort of wonder whether she intends to present these as something other than in the event they're offered for impeachment.
Yes, Your Honor has it right. The state at this point, we do tend to offer it to use it as co-conspirator exceptions to the hearsay. So to tender the actual cause, we believe that there's.
Okay, then how would they be, if they're not prior inconsistent statements? Sorry. If he testifies and he doesn't testify along the lines of whatever is said in these calls, then you would offer it as a prior inconsistent statement. Is that correct?
It would be, but that's just one that's one way we believe it's admissible. We also believe that it's co-conspirator hearsay, which would be admissible even were he not testifying. So
but if he is testifying.
Louis Thomas, good point. Wasn't there communications that needed to be reviewed? Emails maybe? Can't remember. Yeah. Yeah, that might be it. But that still has to do with this trial. And she said it has nothing to do with this trial. So I have no clue. I have absolutely no clue.
Then how are they both admissible if it's not a prior inconsistent statement?
So when you,
how are you getting it in through him?
So no, we would not be putting it in through him. The reason I said to treat it as if we were not going to use it just for impeachment purposes is because it was.
Could be the steel contempt that they have reached a verdict, but that still has bearing on this trial because his contempt was in this trial. I have no idea. Hey, Dave is here again. Hey, Dave. Says love is insane. Maybe not in a legal point of view, but yeah, she actually believes she's doing a good job. I think she actually believes she is the ultimate representation of truth and law in that courtroom. And she takes it as a personal offense that somebody might not agree with her. Meeting might be about Hugh's troubles. Yeah, but Hugh is a defendant in this case. And if the prosecution wants to bring that in, that would be an intrinsic act. You're making excellent suggestions. But I still have no clue why they are having a meeting with the defense, the defendants, and the prosecutors in chambers tomorrow. That has nothing to do with this trial.
They are actual calls that are admissible irrespective of whether or not he testifies. So
you're losing me there. How? It's a prior statement of a witness who's testifying at trial. It would seem like it would have to either be a prior inconsistent statement or a prior consistent statement when there's been some suggestion of fabrication.
So, Your Honor, my understanding is that he does not, let me actually pull up the support for my position before I speak, so that I'm speaking clearly.
This is how I interpret Ms. Love's arguments. It makes no sense. Yeah, Louis, she's insane according to Albert Einstein's definition of insanity, repeating the same behavior and expecting a different outcome. Yeah. But this is what happens when legislators write bad law, like the Georgia RICO Act. This is the result. Absolute dog shit is allowed as evidence. Absolute dog shit is allowed as testimony. Absolute dog shit is allowed as argument. When legislators write bad law, the outcome are bad cases.
If it's not a pro, the court's question was, if he's testifying, how is it admissible if it's not a prior inconsistent statement? Is what I understood the court's question to be.
Or a prior consistent statement if the prerequisites for that are met.
So hearsay is an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So regardless of whether someone testifies or not, hearsay it's still hearsay. And if we were to use these statements, there has to be some exception that allows it in. One of them would be if it were not actually hearsay, but were simply a prior inconsistent statement. Well, one way to get it in would be if it were a prior inconsistent statement.
Correct. Yeah. I don't think you got any questions that if it ends up being offered as a prior inconsistent statement, then that would be a way it could come in.
Right. The other way is, irrespective of whether it contradicted his trial testimony, it's a hearsay. It's still an out-of-court statement the state offers for the truth of the matter asserted.
Right.
Therefore, it is still hearsay under those circumstances. Therefore, it would have to be subject to a hearsay exception to be allowed in.
Right.
So therefore, it would also be admissible, permissible evidence as as an exception, a statement by a co-conspirator of a party during the course and in furtherance of the conspiracy, 801 D2E, i.e. 801 D2E. So it's admissible multiple ways as evidence many times is, irrespective of the availability of the declarant.
What? What? So she wants it in either as a prior inconsistent statement, not offered for the truth of the matter, and as a consistent statement offered for the not for the truth of the what? What?
The 492. Are there objections to the 492, page 493?
Yes, sir. Reference 492, relevance, hearsay. With 1057. I don't, relevance, 1059, definitely relevance. Potentially hearsay. Uh, 1384, relevance, 403, especially Mr. Dorsey's, what Mr. Dorsey says, also hearsay, because again, this is Mr. Dorsey speaking as well as Mr. Sumlin. Two 442, hearsay. believe that that's being utilized to assert the truth, well, for the truth of the matter asserted and to link people to the quote unquote web. 2712, hearsay. About what Mr. Copeland told him. Two 2805, hearsay, especially as to what Mr. Dorsey says. So Mr. Summerlin testifies still that these are statements by Dorsey on this call. And 2980 relevance.
Okay. Okay. Does the state want to address those?
Yes, Your Honor. And the first two, 493 and 1064, so the first one, Your Honor, that is really one of an impeachment category in terms of Mr. Sumlin at the beginning of this wiretap gets a bunch of text messages in a relatively short span of time from an unknown number, and he gets progressively angrier. And these messages are, and I was trying to pull them up, they're not on this wiretap, but some of them reference his friends who were murdered.
Yeah, this is something I addressed this morning. These wiretaps, the people listening in have the option to add text messages. The option. How do we know they are adding all the relevant text messages? How do we know they didn't skip a few? How is that allowed in as evidence via the wiretap? I don't understand that, because that would be against the rule of completion. To have, here's the wiretap, blah, 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 and all of a sudden there's 10 text messages. Yeah, but maybe there were 15 sent. And those 5 missing made a completely different context. So for me, it's ridiculous to even entertain the thought of allowing these text messages in as a part of the wiretap. They have to come in separately. Then they can try to connect them too. But just because it is one or two person, I have no clue, I don't know, who was doing the wiretap listening. It's their subjective opinion that message mattered and that one did not. I don't understand how that is allowed. I have no idea how that comes even close to being allowed.
And so he starts escalating what this number calls. So when he says, call me from a text app, you're not saying nothing. He's kind of mumbling to the phone of this person who was calling him or texting him. And he says, I'm ready, drop the dot, as in drop, send your location. I'm on Cleveland, or I'm at the Chevron on Cleveland, pull up. I swear to God, I'm gonna go out with a bang. That the state is not intending to offer that as a co-conspirator statement. On some level it is, and I was trying to pull up text messages that are tethered to this, Your Honor, so that the court could get some clarity on what leads up to this. It's primarily for the way that these text messages give reference of kind of like where he is, and it's somewhat territorial of the locations. So I'll pull up these text messages that are in the wiretap that the court hasn't seen.
Yeah, I vaguely remember, because I was taking a nap at the time when when Catnall Williams mentioned that context not adding up, and I assume it was about everything about the wiretaps does not add up. There is stuff missing, a lot of it seems. And I hope that the defense brings that up in a motion to suppress, or a motion to an emotion in limine of sort.
I guess I'm trying to figure out what the scenario, they're saying not for a co-conspirator. So like, is a scenario where this would be admissible? Like if they ask Mr. Sumlin on the stand, have you ever been to Cleveland Avenue? And he says, no, is that?
Your Honor, what is, our position is that number one and two, our position is that number one and two, we will use those of the ones that we've identified, we will use those to impeach if necessary. So when he says call from a text app, I'm not saying anything. That's a call that is better put upon this witness to have him talk to the jury about why it is that he is asking that someone call him from a text app. One of the ways that they conceal their illegal activity is using other applications besides traditional cellular service. So that one, and number two, the second one, which was page 493 and page 1064 and reference number 492 and reference number 1057. Those two are better as impeachment if necessary. So all Mr. Atkins is saying is that rather than offering those two, we will ask questions of the witness. And to answer Mr. Sharp's question about what it is the state would be asking, when you use a text app, why is it that you would prefer a text app? Why would you have someone, if you're talking to somebody on a telephone, why would you do that? Or there's an objection to relevance. Why did you do that? Did you do that on a particular day? And why did you do it? To explain what it is that text apps do that cellular service doesn't. In other words, it doesn't allow you to monitor it in the same way that cellular service. So the content of those two calls are, we believe, good and fine impeachment information.
Okay, and so that might be less than the entirety of those two calls.
Right. So the information we would get out is what I just said. Of course, we would be asking him about what dropping a dot means.
Dripping. Remember when Miss Love argued that dripping in the context of a red shirt means blood was dripping? One of the folks, I'm Swedish. I'm old as fuck. I know what dripping is. Miss Love, a woman in her 40s who looks like she's in her 60s, claims to know her area. She's clueless. She's absolutely clueless. Absolutely clueless.
He refers being at the Chevron on Cleveland. In his actual acknowledgments, he talks about that location. And so the entirety of the call would not be, we wouldn't need to play the entirety of the call under these circumstances. It would be, these are questions we'd ask the witness.
Okay. Okay, so that would just
take us down to the
need to be dealt with at the time, I guess. But I guess if he doesn't say those things, then that is available,
right? Yeah,
for impeachment and potentially substantive evidence. Okay. All right. And then this 1059, 1066. Who's Yayo?
Yeah, I think she is born 1978. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see here. I remember her saying something about it with a witness who said, "Oh, the woman who, the vodka drinking woman who got shot, who testified a few weeks ago, who said she doesn't look her age. Miss Love said the same thing, and I believe Miss Love might have argued that she looks younger than she is." And then somebody in the chat said she was born in either 1976 or 1978, which makes her 46 or 48. Adrian Love is not 59. Casper. There's no way. Dun, dun, dun. (1964). Is her middle name P? Are you sure that's the same person? Because I don't see Adrian P. Love. Let's see here, Adrian Love. All right, we need to find that out, if that is actually her. Glanville said he worked with her for 20 years, so add some education and work years to that. Well, okay, let's do some lawyer math here. Now, she has been in the prosecution's office since, I saw an article from 2020 that she has been there for 16 years. That makes the 20 years as a prosecutor. Dun, dun, dun. 15 years veteran prosecutor. It doesn't say what she joined the Fulton County District Attorney's Office in August of 2011. So 16 years of litigation. This is the latest from Fulton County. 15-year veteran prosecutor. Yeah, I don't think. And Adrian spells her name like this. So I don't think you have the correct Adrian. Casper. I don't think you have the correct one. Because 16 years of litigation out of so okay, say she's 46. That would make her 30 or 28 when she left law school, which is more probable. It's the wrong spelling of her first name. This is the correct spelling of her first name. While Daly and Casper says Adrienne. It's not the same first name. So, well, you two are good researcher. So, well, we will find out eventually. We will find out eventually.
So, Your Honor, the state believes that Yayo is YSL member Eric Moore.
Okay.
And on this call, Mr. Sumlin is speaking with Christian Eppinger on a contraband phone, obviously an indicted co-conspirator. And the state would, playing this call for the court is helpful for.
Okay, let's look at this instead. Adrienne L. Love. That's her full name with that spelling. So that is the spelling of the name. And she can't sign her name with a different spelling because that would make it invalid. So that is her actual spelling of the name. All right, let's go back to trial.
Argument, and the state feels it's important to play this call.
Okay.
And I do think Latrell. No. Her name cannot be Latrell. That is too close to latrine. No. That would explain why she's so shit. Oh no. Explains why she only puts L.
Yo, what's up, baby? Hey, bro. Hey, what, you with that nigga Jacob?
Oh, a new call. Skip ahead. I don't care about the calls. Oh, look here over at the right side. That is Mr. Shad, ear to speaker, saying, yep, I'm not missing any of this, any of it.
I don't even know what top 3.
That objection on the floor. Okay. And so that objection on the floor is relevance. Is that the only objection you made on that one?
Yes, that is in 403. To be honest, you know, and I've listened to all these calls, but I'm having a tough time tracking. You know, I'm saying relevance, but in all candor to the court, I don't even know what they're talking about. So I guess that's a good start for relevance. But if the state could explain the relevance, maybe I'd be able to respond.
Your Honor, I need to play PDF page 1052 for the beginning. It will give context to why Christian Eppinger is discussing Yayo the way that he is. And it's a call that is, so on this other call, this is my notes, one that we have not played. It's stating, you know that boy Yayo, why you say that? Quay called him from the jail and they said something about he locked up for murder because Yayo told on him. Everyone in the neighborhood's telling me that. And the guy's like, I didn't know that, man. I swear to God. I don't believe him because Unfunk, who's Mr. Greer, told him that they just got off the phone with Quay. I don't know how true it was. Bree, the one starting all that rumor. And then he says, I don't know. I talked to him myself. I just seen him in Unfunk myself late last night. So I believe that Christian Eppinger is talking to Antonio Sumlin about that because of this rumor that Yayo was snitching. I don't have any evidence that Yayo was actually snitching, but the initial reason why I had initially included, we whittled some of these down. And so you kind of need, and it's very brief, but this call doesn't make really any sense without the context of this conversation on PDF page 1052, which is April 7th at 11:14 a.m. This call is April 7th at 1:53 p.m. So they're a couple hours apart. So what I may do, because I think it's dispositive of, or not dispositive, but very relevant to the court's, necessary for the court's ruling, to play 1052. I'm going to start at the beginning because my notes have this coming up quite quickly in that call.
Rose, what's up, brother? Who you with? I call my girl on the way. Where you at? Nah, I'm in the car, but tell him why. You know, you went up there when Yayo was mad tonight, but he ain't say he snitched and shit. Nah, I went up there. Yeah, he was like, man, we been saying I snitched. Don't wait, and this, that, and third. Man, tell him why Tay came now and said the same thing. You know, Tay who you are, he came to AJ last night. He was like, man, I know that boy Yayo. I said, why you say that? He say, man, Quay called me from jail and said they blocked him. Like, yo, I'm not there. Oh, so we're he's trying to.
So, Your Honor, that was the portion where, which that portion we just played is at 7:14 a.m. on April 7th, and the one we just discussed was at 1:53 p.m. In the States, I believe if the court deems 1066 admissible, you need to have that brief portion from 1052 to have context.
Yes, there's more than one Quay. They have to really dig into that, because apparently there's 3 people in Atlanta gang affiliations that call themselves Quay. 3 of them.
To why both Antonio Sumlin and Christian Eppinger on a contraband jail phone both indicted YSL co-conspirators in the RICO on this case are, and Eppinger's discussing that way. I mean, discussing Yayo about that in those terms. And it furthers the conspiracy by keeping abreast of, obviously, if he actually was snitching, they would want to know that. And 2, it's how they're discussing this. And it reinforces the solidarity between each other, specifically Eppinger and Sumlin. And of course, snitching, or if someone, that term has came up and will come up a multitude of times in this trial in a number of different ways.
Your Honor, may I ask a question of the state?
Uh-huh.
Who do you believe to be, like, we're kind of going back to the first call now. Who do you believe to be Quay?
Okay, but y'all aren't intending to introduce the first call, right?
Well, with this whittled down list, we did not. I quite frankly believe that may have been an error, because the context of Eppinger speaking with Sumlin about Yayo makes no sense if you don't hear this conversation about the rumor that
All
he
right,
is.
so we need to add that back in.
Yes, Your Honor, it's the first minute of this PDF page 1052 call, or 1 minute and 50 seconds, because it's still on display on the screen.
Right.
Okay. So does it matter who they believe Quay is?
It does to me, Your Honor.
Founder. Adrian Latrell Love, age, she's 54. She's born 1970. I still say she looks like she's in her 60s, so she definitely doesn't look younger than she is. Apparently she lives in Mableton, Georgia. So, yeah.
and this is what, first of all, we have two Quays here.
Yeah.
But my stance and my belief is that that initial call and the context I have is Bree is the source of this information. I believe I know who Bree is that this Quay being discussed in the first call is neither of these two individuals and is a separate Quay that is not even alleged. I've never seen alleged to be associated with YSL. So if that's the first call that gives the context, then the second call, Mr. Eppinger is ranting to Mr. Sumlin, who seems to be thoroughly confused by the whole situation, about someone named Yayo, who's not mentioned in our discovery at all, other than this this wiretap. So he's obviously a very tangential part of whatever we're calling this. Yayo supposedly snitching on Quay. Now, I do believe that it relevance to
Yeah. Everything I showed is open records. Everything I showed. Do I give a fuck about her? No. Folks, remember, Adrian Love puts people in jail, hoping they will die in jail. People she put in jail have died in jail. She has prosecuted knowingly innocent people successfully that died in prison. I don't give a flaming fuck about her or her privacy. Not a flaming fuck.
determination depends on what he's supposedly snitching on and who the Quay is. And I get, generally, or not generally, but sometimes we say, well, that's a jury question. The state, in my mind, before putting up all these statements, need to know what these people are talking about before putting in front of the jury as just a baseline question. And I don't believe, unless the state can prove to me or show me that I'm wrong, I don't believe that the Quay that's even being discussed in either of these calls is anyone associated with this case or anyone sitting in this court.
I do not know specifically. So I don't know specifically which Quay they're talking about. I know that I don't have any information from Atlanta Police Department of.
There he said it. There he said it. He has no idea which Quay they are talking about. Then nothing of that should be admissible. Not a scintilla of it should be admissible. If they cannot tell which one it is, if it is one out of three, at least three Quays.
The person they believe is Yayo provide a statement to them. So
listen here again.
Anyone associated with this case or anyone sitting in this court.
I do not know specifically. So I don't know specifically which Quay they're talking about. I know.
He said it. He does not know which Quay they are talking about. Then how in the how can any conversation about Quay how can any of that be admissible as evidence if they have no clue which Quay they are talking about?
That I don't have any information from Atlanta Police Department of the person they believe is Yayo provide a statement to them. So I don't know exactly what they're saying he snitched on in terms of if they're talking about one of the Quays in this trial or another Quay. I do not, to answer Mr. Sharp's question or the courts, if the court's inquiring, I do not know if they're referring to the murder of Shamel Drinks or some other act. I don't know. So
he doesn't even know what they're talking about. He has no clue which Quay they are talking about or or which crime they are talking about. Jesus Christ.
I want to make that clear. The state's intent with this call was to enforce how they discuss, the snitching tenant in YSL. If someone's snitching, they want to find out about it. And, Eppinger clearly wants to exact violence on this person if he believes he's snitching. I'm trying to think through in my mind, quite frankly, with, if this nickname instead of Quay was Bob, it would not create any confusion. The state's position would still be, it's how they're discussing this rumor of snitching. I understand, considering prior objections, that defense counsel like Mr. Matthews or Mr. Nichols' counsel would want to make it clear that.
Is there a way to do it without the name Quay coming in?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, that would solve that one.
No!
Yes, Your Honor.
And then.
No, it wouldn't, because they still don't know which one they're talking about or what crime it is about. For fuck's sake, Judge Whitaker. None of it should be admissible if they have no clue what they're talking about or who they are talking about.
I mean, I would think that it is highly relevant how these.
How?
Alleged.
How? When then the prosecution don't. Oh, for fuck's sake. How are the defense supposed to cross-examine about this then, Judge Whitaker? When the state has no clue which Quay or what crime? How? How?
YSL members, some of them, I think, maybe established YSL members, are discussing the idea, if true, of one of their own snitching.
So, Judge, I hear the court. I would ask the court under 403 to require, if it's going to come in, obviously I'm not consenting for this to come in, but if the court believes that it comes in for that purpose, that under 403, that it be redacted, that the name Quay, for confusion, misleading the jury, under 403.
That is granted.
Thank you, Judge.
Your Honor, I understand, as I understand your ruling, it's not the specifics. It's Mr. Eppinger and Mr. Sumlin basically discussing the concept of snitching.
Yeah.
But my other problem is my understanding of that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
I don't view necessarily these two calls linked as Mr. Atkins does. It seems to me that Mr. Eppinger is upset about a robbery and returning property. That's kind of as I understood the second call, not a comment about quote unquote snitching.
There certainly seems to be a part of that's what it seems to be covering, right?
That was the state's understanding, Your Honor. But I never can perfectly know exactly what someone's stating in these circumstances, but the state believed these two were connected because of how quick they're the same day and a couple hours apart. So I don't, other than what I proffered to the court, I don't have any other additional information about.
Oh, yeah, no, but like another part, other than talking about and seemingly being mad at the idea that Yayo might be snitching,
No.
There's also this discussion, isn't there, of somebody
Your Honor,
potentially
Stop this one
taking
before that.
somebody's stuff and.
Your Honor, I believe with the 1066, we only played until 150. And so I think that comes after that.
what I understood is Eppinger ranting, Sumlin saying, what are you so upset about? Are you upset about this rumor of Yayo snitching? And then Eppinger says, no, that's not what I'm upset about. I'm upset about this robbery. So I could be wrong, but I didn't even on the call hear necessarily Eppinger speaking bad about the concept of snitching. I think he was upset about something completely different, and Sumlin was confused. And then.
Well, we might need to listen to it again.
Oh, God,
Okay. Because if that's the case, then maybe it's not relevant if it doesn't have to do with him being mad at that.
Hello? Hello? Yo, what's up, baby? Hey, bro.
Yeah, still not interested. It's enough for me to listen to what they argue about. Oh, here we go.
So, Your Honor, after listening, I never thought he was talking about a robbery, but when Mr. Shard said that and re-listened it now, I thought it was tethered to the call earlier because I listened to these back to back to back,
Yeah.
but I can miss stuff. And so I agree with Mr. Shard that it does sound like he's more tethered to someone robbing from a friend or family while Mr. Ebinger is locked up. What I will say in relation to this call, which may never have to come up, is if we asked Antonio Summerlin.
So he represented something that wasn't true to the judge because he didn't listen to it carefully enough. Welcome to the prosecution's case. They are not prepared at all for anything.
About speaking with
At
Christian
least he
Eppinger
admits it.
while, from either a
But-
contraband phone or if he said, I don't know who he is, I have no idea, I've never
Okay.
talked to him, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
may play a portion of this, but will not play. I thought they were tethered together
Okay.
initially.
He probably thought it because Adrian Love told him. But by listening to it, Mr. Adkins, the next time Ms. Love lies to you, just tell the judge, my apologies, Your Honor, Ms. Love lied to me. It was not the way she told me it was.
All right, so then not being offered on the concepts that we were originally discussing. And I guess that then means that other one's not going to be offered either.
So, Your Honor, for 1052,
Mhm.
the state cannot play. I mean, on the one hand, the way that they're discussing this, the reason I hesitate, like in terms of the way that they're discussing the rumors of this person snitching on someone else, but given
Well, right,
What-
because they're saying, well, I mean, that too, but it's not really that we're calling about.
correct,
so-
Your Honor. So at this point, the state does not intend to play 1052.
All right. So we all on the same page on this one? Okay. Okay, then the next one is 1380, reference 1384, page 1394. Dorsey, who is at this point an unindicted co-conspirator, right?
We dismissed against Mr. Dorsey.
Right,
Right,
so-
so he's,
So they dismissed every charge against Mr. Dorsey, but he's still an unindicted co-conspirator, and therefore things he said can be used against these guys. What an absolutely horrible thing to. But again, I said this a couple of times during this stream. This is how vague the Georgia RICO Act is. This is what the lawmakers wanted. Well, it might not be what they wanted, but this is the result. They can dismiss charges against a person, still call him an unindicted co-conspirator in order to get that evidence in, even though they dismiss the charges against that. It is so incredibly stupid.
right.
But you would, are you still maintaining he's
He's definitely a
co-conspirator?
yes.
Okay, all right. And someone on a call, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Everyone, according to Adrian Love, when it suits her, is an unindicted co-conspirator. Everyone. Everyone.
Okay.
And this particular portions of this call, so yes, they are Mr. Dorsey, given that we've dismissed his charges after his recent trial, portions of this call are captured in the indictment as, I think, count 56, and it's also alleged as an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy itself, count 1. So both Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Sumlin are co-conspirators with the defendants on trial as to count 1. And this particular call furthers the conspiracy. I think it would be best for the court to hear the call before we make the argument. And if that's okay with the court, and to hear these specific objections before I just start narrating about our position, if that's okay with the court.
Okay, so sure, that's fine. You've got a relevance and a 403 and then a Dorsey hearsay objection and a should have listened to the portions that y'all intend to play.
Thank you.
Skipping ahead.
But questions that we
You got over 2 years in. Man, I can't. And I know you got this. And I know you got this shit on. Do I? Oh well.
And Your Honor, we're playing portions that we, so the dreads part, that part is not necessarily, I just wanted to put a pin in this particular part. We're going to keep playing it, but I understand that some of the portions we may take out, but we're going to just play it for context.
Okay.
Still not interested.
805.
Skipping, because it's more.
The defendants.
Oh,
Mr. Dorsey in jail talking to Mr. Sumlin. These are two co-conspirators of the defendants here. The conversation is intended to foster reassurance and cohesion with a YSL associate, or a co-conspirator rather, who is in jail, not able to know what all is going on. The most pertinent part of what we heard was, one of the more pertinent parts was Mr. Sumlin actually telling Mr. Dorsey that Onfon asks about him every day. He says it more than once, but then when Mr. Dorsey says, "Who your girl?" and then they start joking about what his girl feels about Mr. Dorsey and dreads. So that area from about 2 minutes to 4, I think it was about 4 minutes and change, where I paused and put a pin in it for the dreads part, that we wouldn't need to play. But the portion where he's talking about slimes and slat, and Mr. Dorsey is relaying to Mr. Sumlin that what he's gotten from one YSL associate, and their conversation about that knowledge, we believe, is part of Mr. Sumlin, Mr. Dorsey giving Mr. Sumlin what information he has, Mr. Sumlin sort of being reassuring. They're talking about essentially, family fighting, but they go on to talk about how they rock, how they are close, nevertheless, regardless of the squabbles internally. As we go further down, skipping from where he gets off the phone and says, "Stay right here," and he sort of starts talking to someone else from that point till he comes back on the phone saying that he is on FaceTime with Kel. Mr. Sumlin goes on to tell Mr. Dorsey that we've been beefing with Shell, Kel, and them. And Mr. Dorsey is saying, them 9 deuce ends, what Shell, Kel talking about? This is Mr. Sumlin apprising Mr. Dorsey of what's going on, even if he has some kind of, respect for the game. As he then goes on and says further down that the shit is getting serious. It's so lit out here. And we stop before they start talking about information from a girl and things that we don't feel is really pertinent. So the call between Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Sumlin, this being someone that Mr. Dorsey reaches out to commit one of the acts we've alleged in the indictment, we believe is pertinent in that it fosters the cohesion that I spoke of earlier.
All right, well, what about the portions later on that are noted on here? With Dorsey asking about what Thug has going on and talking about him being bodies on bodies.
We can take out the bodies on bodies on bodies on bodies. That part we don't need to play about Mr. Dorsey talking about himself having bodies on bodies. Him talking about Umfunk and Thug being in LA, we believe is pertinent in that it is reflecting the association between members or associates or co-conspirators. So the providing of information to Mr. Dorsey by Mr. Sumlin about Thug and Umfunk, especially where initially you hear Mr. Sumlin attempting to tell Mr. Dorsey that Umfunk asks about him every day, I believe is intended, again, to just keep him in the loop.
This is all I'm hearing and seeing. Whenever Ms. Love tries to explain how this makes sense, this is what I'm seeing. Sadly, the Georgia RICO Act allows this. This is what the lawmakers, it might not have been their intent, but this is the result. And this is admissible under the Georgia RICO Act.
Even though he's locked up. So it is in that way providing reassurance and fostering cohesion.
Okay.
So there are portions that we would, of course, not want to play, dreads, your girl, bodies on bodies on bodies on bodies, rolling up a weed. Those portions we would take out and can give express timestamps for those that we would be taking out. We specifically would like to play the portions that I've just specifically spoken of to the court for the reasons that I've described or given.
Okay, so, on the sheet, it's really narrow bits of this, 428 to 440, 832 to 840, 910 to 920. But I feel like do you actually want in more than that?
Yes, because as I looked, I was literally looking at the time frame, the timestamps, and some of what I specifically asked in, I think, are outside of those portions, those groupings. So I'll have to provide to the defense a more specific and better tailored timestamp.
Okay. All right. I mean, it seems like if as you're describing it, that first portion.
Your Honor, I heard it a little differently. Just factually, what was said on the call.
Go ahead.
My understanding from listening to the call is Sumlin told Dorsey that someone was asking about.
Speak into the mic.
Oh, Mr. Sumlin told Mr. Dorsey that someone was asking about him. Mr. Dorsey says, now this Mr. Dorsey doesn't know the answer to that question, says, oh, who? Umfunk? And then Mr. Sumlin says, no, my girl, or something like that. And so, I think that Mr. Dorsey brought up Umfunk, who's Mr. Greer, but Mr. Sumlin, who's the one that's given the information, actually said, no, that's not correct. But beyond that, Your Honor, this call is important because it shows that Dorsey knows Sumlin, and Sumlin says that Umfunk and Jeffrey are in LA at that time. First of all, I don't know how that's furthering a conspiracy.
I don't think that what Thug got going on there in LA is anything other than, what's been going on. So I don't see that part coming in.
Thank you.
And it's just, I don't know. To me, the only thing that this call may do is show that Dorsey, it does do, is show that Dorsey and Sumlin know each other, and at least they've heard of or are familiar with the people that are Umfunk and Mr. Williams. I'm not sure how personally familiar, but at this point, a year into this trial, if that's what we're trying to prove at this point, this is supposed to be about Mr. Dorsey seeking approval from Mr. Sumlin, this count, for harming Mr. Rashawn Bennett, Mr. YFN Lucci, and I don't see how any of this on this call falls under any hearsay exceptions, and then further how it's further, I don't see how it's really relevant to anything that's alleged in this indictment. It's just, I mean, this is really just a 10-minute, 15-minute conversation of two guys talking about nothing.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I'd go that far. I think maybe, Ms. Love, if you could narrow down and give us new timestamps, and then maybe we just listen to the portions that you actually think should come in.
Okay.
We'll just circle back on this one, okay?
Thank you.
But those last two parts that are listed, one of them you withdrew and the other one is out anyway, but I think we got to get a better handle on
just a
which
specific.
parts, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
At least
Okay.
we limited it
The
some.
next one is labeled reference number 0, page number 1892, I think.
Yeah. The page on this wiretap is 1,892.
Right, Your Honor, page 1892, and we're going to start at the beginning, going up to 40, about 1 minute in.
Imagine the cost of having wiretap put in, then have people monitoring it apparently somewhat live or listening to it, all of it, looking for imagine the cost, and this is what you got out of it. Holy crap.
Well, what's it about, and is there an objection?
I'm sorry. Oh, so this is Mr. If the court is asking the state.
This is the same two people talking again, right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, is there anything beyond what's in the summary? And who is it they're talking about that they need to take down? Or can we tell?
Head, and that is the person he is alleged to have sought the murder
Okay,
of.
so this is the one that has to do with seeking permission.
No, not from, this is the one that is count 56.
Count 56 or Act 56?
Count 56. 55. With the, where Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Sumlin are charged with conspiracy to commit the offense of murder.
Okay, which is not is it also an act that?
Yes, it's, all of the counts are also acts.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And the date is April the 15th.
Okay, well, is there any objection to this one? It's clearly relevant. I don't think I actually heard objection when y'all were running through the list the first time. I mean, I know you wouldn't ideally want it in, but is there any evidentiary objection to this?
Your Honor, I don't want to waste the court's time. If that is what it purports to be, then there would not be a relevance objection. What I'm a little unclear of is, my notes are good, but they're not 100%. So obviously any character, irrelevant things like that that are in the call, I would be objecting to, but I would just ask if we could circle back on this one.
All right, we'll circle back on this one too. So you can re-review your notes or to make.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. 1442, 1488. This one also seems relevant, and I think the only objection I heard before was hearsay. If it's what it seems to be, seems like that would come in under the co-conspirator exception.
Well, Your Honor, this is kind of the same. This is the cousin to my objections with Mr. Garlington. I'm not going to defend Mr. Sumlin in court if there's seems to be calls indicating that he is selling narcotics. It is what it is. But as far as being in furtherance of a conspiracy or involving anyone here or in any organization that the state has deemed a RICO organization, quote unquote YSL, I just don't see that. This seems to be someone with their phone tap doing individual illegal activity on their phone. So,
well, I mean, it obviously is going to be for the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that any of this drug dealing was in furtherance of the gang, but that they can argue it. Whether they convince the jury of that or not, I don't know. Their evidence is not particularly strong.
Listen to the judge, what she just said here.
In furtherance of the gang, but that they can argue it. Whether they convince the jury of that or not, I don't know. Their evidence is not particularly strong that I've seen so far on this. But I'm not the decision maker with regard to that. So,
I mean, this is just a little bit different of a call because this isn't even two people. This is a drug dealer telling a drug purchaser, "Hey, meet me at this spot so I can sell you some drugs."
yeah.
I just not seeing the relevance link for why we're here. If they charged Antonio Sumlin with selling drugs in 2022, I would completely get it. But that's not why we're here.
And Your Honor, this is a perfect example of one that the web has came into evidence in multiple ways through testimony. I believe it was written in Instagram messages from 2015. This is 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And Antonio Sumlin says, I'm going to be at the web, which is a place where drugs were sold in a common hangout. And the person on the call says, you mean Slug's old spot, who was Tronstavius Stevens, who testified, was a witness in this trial, whose nickname is Tick, and also Slug. And Antonio Sumlin says, yeah, but it ain't Slug old spot anymore. So you have something from 2015.
Oh, for fuck's sake. So it's a spot that somebody 8 years earlier sold drugs from, and now somebody else sells drugs from that spot. Therefore, those two must be connected. They should slap themselves when they get home at night, looking themselves in the mirror. They should slap themselves silly, slap themselves to sleep for bringing this kind of stupidity into a courtroom.
A spot that YSL members hang out in the state puts forth drugs were sold at that has passed hands over the years. And you fast forward to 2022, the state would ask Mr. Sumlin questions about this. And if he said, I've never heard of the web.
Have you proven that this is an official handover? No, you haven't. No, you haven't. You make claims that are so incredibly stupid.
I don't know who Slug's is or Trontavious Stevens is, and I definitely don't know he ever used to have some spot called the web, we would impeach him with this very brief portion. So I view this more so as a impeachment with, and again, Mr. Sumlin's going to be testifying.
Okay.
And I understand the state for the clarification. Now, I will say, if those questions are posed to Mr. Sumlin, I am going to object because I don't, and I'm not saying this was intentional, but from my recollection, Mr. Stevens was not saying that he had this place called the Web back in 2015. So I don't think that those dates are correct or have been or accurately reflect the testimony, but I understand what the state's saying about impeaching. I just don't think those dates are correct.
Okay. Well,
I don't want Mr. Sumlin to be confronted with false dates and then deny it, and then all of a sudden we're saying.
Okay. Well, I was about to say to the state, you better make sure what the facts are that have come in before you ask it in that specific of a way.
Yes, Your Honor. And Ms. Love and Ms. Hilton both said that, and Ms. Chard, the date, I in my brain, I thought it was 2015 because this came into the trial.
Okay. Well, just
but
make
it's
sure what
2022.
it is.
So that
before you
Instagram
ask
photo.
about it. Okay. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, also the second speaker, the unidentified speaker is not speaking. I would object to that being played. Any of their statements or his statements.
The
Non-testifying.
purchaser.
The purchaser. Because they're not in conspiracy in a drug case. It's a buyer-seller relationship. So under Darville, D-A-R-V-I-L-L-E, they're not co-conspirators.
Right. No, they wouldn't be. I would think that would be accurate.
And Your Honor, Jones v. State, which is a 339 Georgia App 95. It's a Georgia Court of Appeals case. Pin site. It says, the court ruled that I'll find the pin site 1 second, Your Honor. It says the court ruled that the informant statements were admissible to provide
Slow down. There is no
Sorry.
way she can take that.
My apologies, Madam Court Reporter. I'm very sorry, genuinely. They wanted to provide context for Jones' responses to those statements, not that the informant statements were admitted to prove the truth of
Well,
the
maybe I
matter
better
asserted.
listen to it then.
Yes, Your Honor. This stands for the proposition, and again, it's 3 sentences. Mr. Sumlin says, "I'm going to be at the web." This other individual says, "What, Slug's old spot?" And Antonio Sumlin says, "Yes, but it ain't Slug's old spot no more." So if you just had Mr. Sumlin saying, "I'm going to be at the web," yeah, but it ain't Slug's old spot no more. I mean, it's literally this male saying 4 words.
Okay.
What, Slug's old spot? I think it gives context to Mr. Sumlin's response.
Okay. And then does that caller say anything else?
No, Your Honor. This whole entire clip is 46 seconds.
Okay. So the only thing that the purchaser says is what? Slug's old spot?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
In terms of the part that the state would be asking Mr. Sumlin, and if necessary, impeach him
Okay.
with this portion.
All right. I mean, I would think that would be okay to come in to provide context. And that's 339 Georgia App 95 is that what you said?
Yeah, yes, Your Honor. It's 339 Georgia App 95. It's a case where they played a jail call with an informant, and they objected because, again,
None of the people in that is an informant. At least not what you have told us in this matter. None of them are an informant. So it's a different situation. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm so getting demonetized. This stream, yeah, it's screwed already. Let me check. Hey, I'm still green. Huh. Oh, it will be yellow after I close down the stream.
other person on the line who wasn't the defendant in this case wasn't testifying. And I read this case to basically hold for it in certain contexts. Like this is a perfect example. If you're playing a recording and you need to have the context, you're not offering the other person's words for the truth of the matter asserted. Like the state's not offering this male was that Slug's old spot for the truth. It's because Antonio Sumlin responds yes, but it's not Slug's spot anymore. And again, Mr. Sumlin will be testifying.
Okay. All right, our next one is
In 2015, I was negotiating the biggest deal of my career. And it turned out to be, we negotiated a closing of business for one of the big international companies. And for 200 members, I got out roughly $20 million in severance, back pay, and educational funds. That was what I was doing in 2015.
2712, page 2752.
And even though that deal was for 200 workers, a $20 million deal, which translates to $100,000 each, roughly. Remember, the cost of living in Sweden is half of the United States. So, yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. And they were too. No, I will not discuss which company it was. Just saying it was an international one. Art of Negotiations. I tried to make, in the absolute beginning of this channel, I did a few of those videos and nobody watched them. Still haven't. But don't watch them. They are quite bad. I had no idea what I was doing back then.
Who is he talking to? Who is someone talking to?
So, Your Honor, I don't have the notes for. I don't have a note for who Mr. Sumlin's talking with this. I will try to find that out. I don't know who the other call party is on this call.
Okay. Do you allege it to be an unindicted co-conspirator?
From the nature of this, so
The context?
the context, I think this is one that very much we need to play
Okay.
to adequately address arguments related to it.
And would you intend this one to come in regardless or just for impeachment?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe this would one that would
Come in.
probably both, but yes, if for some reason the state wasn't able to ask the right questions to get this in as impeachment, it's both.
Okay.
And I don't care enough about this call. Let's listen to the lawyers argue about it instead.
We have,
So let's move on to the next one. You can.
thinking through this, we have an unidentified person saying to, this is my understanding, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Unidentified person saying to Sumlin what Mr. Copeland supposedly told him. Is that not correct?
No, I don't think so. Isn't it? Is it the unidentified person that says what Woody said, or is it someone that says what Woody said? But regardless.
So, Your Honor, it is the individual, we think possibly it's somebody that goes by the name Baby Boy because of what's said in this call, but to answer the court's question, he says, the male that Antonio Sumlin's speaking with says, I just got off the phone with Woody, who's Mr. Copeland.
All right. Okay.
So my understanding of 801D2E is the declarant needs to be a member of the conspiracy.
I can't hear you. I mean, I can hear you, but I don't know if everybody can hear you.
My understanding of 801D2E is the declarant, not necessarily the receiver, but the declarant needs to be a member of the conspiracy.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I had their two voices mixed up, I guess. I thought it was someone saying, hey, here's all this stuff I know, and the caller, or I mean, the other person that was just basically, for a lot of the time, saying, uh-huh, and then finally talking at the end. But I guess that was the flip. Right?
Your Honor, I apologize. I was, somebody was speaking, I was speaking with co-counsel when you said that, Your Honor, so I did not hear the court. I apologize.
Okay, so it's the caller who says, hey, here's, all this stuff that Woody just told me. And who is then saying, well, I mean, it seems like they're kind of both saying that, but who is saying, yeah, we have to chill on this YSL stuff for a while and
So,
stop posting and.
Your Honor, they both reference that. So it depends on what comment. So for example, and I can play this part again, but there is a YSL member who goes by the name Bay Boy. And so I'll find the time hack.
You don't know who he is. You haven't identified who that is. So how can you represent he's a YSL member if you have no idea who that person? Oh, for fuck's sake! This is getting more and more stupid by the day. More and more stupid.
But in this call, references who he is. But there's case law and a principle too of an unindicted co-conspirator because this male says, I'm still with the gang, right? And he's talking to Copeland and Garlington's wiretap. We're not playing all of these. He has a plethora of calls with Copeland in the jail. And Copeland does get jumped on in the jail. And this creates an issue. And the prison gang task force goes and talks to Copeland. And so you have both Garlington and this is Sumlin speaking about this. And clearly they're saying we need to fall back. We need to stop posting this YSL stuff. And Obama, what he does say is he says, we got to fall back. And then Sumlin says, like he says right after this guy goes into a conversation about they're watching, and he says right. And so they both say it. And this person he's speaking with is, pretty much overtly saying, I'm still with the gang, but I'm gonna fall back.
I mean, it seems to me like whether we know who this other person is or not, it seems clear from what they're saying that they're co-conspirators.
And I understand the concept of context and picking up on the context. I'll just let the court know my stance. I've never heard of this baby boy or whatever we're saying, and there's no such person mentioned in this very voluminous discovery, and it's just difficult.
So that person is not even mentioned. Well, these jail calls are from 2022, or these wiretaps. So they have to be, the wiretaps themselves has to be in the discovery. But the prosecution has not included the name Bay Boy.
For me, I guess, to accept that we have thousands and thousands of documents, and then the state can say, well, we think it's this person that goes by a nickname that's not mentioned in any of these documents, and we believe they're a co-conspirator. I understand the context, but my objection is under 801 D2E, the state has not established a foundation that the declarant is a co-conspirator.
Okay, and you're saying there are other calls that establish that from the same caller?
Establish which part, Your Honor?
The co-conspirator status of the unknown call.
No, Your Honor.
Unknown other participant in the call.
The state's position is very rarely do you have a call that if you never knew the identity of this person from just the contents of this brief portion, I think it's quite clear. He's speaking with Kenneth Copeland, who there's been evidence and testimony about, is a YSL member in prison, who's also speaking with Demekion Garland because we have two wiretaps going on at the same time. And sometimes they speak with each other. Long story short, he's saying, I'm still with the gang. We got to stop posting this YSL stuff. So if you never knew his name or his identity, I still believe he's an unindicted co-conspirator.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then our next one is 2805, page 2846.
So, Judge, this is co-conspirator statement, the portion of the call that's summarized in, I believe, what the court has before it, that document. I think it accurately sums up the portions that, so from 00 to 505, this is the subject that they're talking about.
Are there objections?
Folks, we're not even we're not there yet, but I don't care. We're roughly $30 away from the actual the having a shot. I'm having a shot. I need. Of moonshine in a Bucky's shot glass. Cheers. That, ugh. That was interesting. Ugh. That's supposed to be non-flavored, turpentine flavored, Windex flavored. I need to shave my tongue after that one. Ugh. Hope it does the job.
On behalf of Mr. Stillwell, to the extent that this call is direct evidence of count, I think it's 56. We acknowledge the relevance. We would just ask that no extraneous information or discussion be played in front of the jury.
Okay, so keep it, I mean, you know the
We have it.
timestamp, so. I mean, I haven't listened to it, but if you think that.
Hey, Brenda. Weren't these defendants in jail in 2022? They were jailed May 22nd. These wiretaps, I believe, are from somewhere around April, so just before they got arrested. But you never know. This prosecution.
There's extraneous stuff within that 5 minutes and 5 seconds. Bring it to my attention or talk with the other side and come to agreement. Okay. All right. So then I think our next one might be the last one for here. Is that right? 2980, page 3022.
Page 3022 of wiretapping. Imagine the cost of having people sitting around wiretapping and listening to this crap.
Or did I skip one?
You skipped one, Your Honor.
Which one did I skip?
I believe 2820 and 20.
Oh, I thought y'all weren't gonna pursue that one anymore.
I'm sorry, I'm the wrong one.
Correct, Your Honor. It is 2980 or 3022 is the last one on the Excel spreadsheet, Your Honor. This is a very brief call that the state would like to play.
All right.
Big, yo. ILBs? Yeah. Where you at, the web? Yeah. I don't know about it. I need no fault.
And then he mentioned magazines with rocks.
That was very brief.
Your Honor, the state believes that this other called party is a rock crew YSL member that goes by the name Jimmy Reeves. And so he says, are you up at the web, which is the same location we had mentioned a couple calls before.
We believe. You're supposed to say we can show that this caller is this person. We believe. Jesus Christ.
2 extra mags for him. I believe he's talking about magazines with bullets in them. And those 27-second clips. And then he mentions Tunk, who I believe he's talking about Mr. Sledge. But it's that brief. This would be one where we would ask him some questions about, I believe it's 2 YSL members talking about getting extra magazines to bring to the web, a location that they hang out or frequent and sell narcotics. But I also see this in the category of questions we would ask Mr. Sumlin on the stand.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't think that would just come in otherwise. I don't think that saying, hey, I think I've got 2 extra mags establishes a conspiracy or that these 2 are co-conspirators.
I understand, Your Honor. I thought he said, and I think we will ask him a question on this. I thought he said, I got 2 extra mags for him, as in for another YSL member. But nonetheless, this is something that we...
Regardless, there can be people that provide ammunition to people who aren't co-conspirators. I mean, I don't think this one meets the requirement.
That logic makes no sense if she has allowed in the previous or the pre-previous one about some jack off selling drugs from the same spot somebody else sell drugs from 9 years ago.
Understood, Your Honor.
So impeachment, if that becomes appropriate, but not otherwise.
Yes, Your Honor.
And
All right.
Your Honor, this might not be the time, but I just don't see they're already talking about laying a foundation for a prior inconsistent statement or potentially, but I don't even see the relevance of someone calling Mr. Sumlin. Mr. Sumlin says, Tunk just left. And then I'm being told it's Jimmy Reeves. Again, Jimmy Reeves is a name that's new to me. And so not exactly a central figure in any of these stories, but apparently wanting to sell gun components to to anyone, but Mr. Sumlin says, oh, Mr. Sledge just left. I just don't see the relevance of any of this to what we're talking about in this trial. So I appreciate the court's ruling about it only potentially coming in as a prior inconsistent statement, but if they start asking questions about something irrelevant, or what I deem irrelevant, I think relevance objections.
Okay.
Your Honor, the state's understanding of this clip is 3 YSL members discussing bringing magazines. I don't believe they're bringing empty magazines. I guess they could, from firearms to a location that YSL members frequent and sell narcotics out of that also has firearms. So I think, because he's saying, I'm bringing it for him, I believe he's talking about Mr. Sledge. So you have 2 YSL members saying, hey, I'm going to come to the trap house to bring an extra 2 magazines for a 3rd YSL gang member.
Okay.
I think it's certainly relevant. I understand the court's position on not in furtherance of the conspiracy, but I think it satisfies 401.
Okay. It wasn't that it wasn't in furtherance of the conspiracy. It was that I don't think it's established that whoever this unknown caller is a co-conspirator.
Understood, Your Honor. That would, I'll proffer to the court that the APD gang detectives are familiar with Mr. Jimmy Reeves.
Then why the fuck isn't he in the indictment? Why is his name not mentioned in discovery? Is it in one of these reports that went missing and suddenly showed up again? No, don't take proffers. Do not take proffers.
Who is a YSL member? There's nothing in the contents of this call that you would know that.
Okay. All right. All right, well, that takes care of those, except for the couple we need to circle back on. So, and those were the 2 we just mentioned, and then also remember 2158.
Facts, body, and evidence.
And then, of course, 2119, when we have Mr. Harvey with us again.
Your Honor,
Yes.
regarding
Regarding the Sumlin wiretap, I've been trying to take notes and I realized, could you just review your ruling or restate your ruling for 2442? I just don't have a ruling noted for that.
That's in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. Can we make progress on something else for maybe another 30 minutes? Yes. Let's all take a restroom break. Well, everybody that wants one. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes.
Okay, we can skip ahead. We are almost done for today, folks. Hey.
I mean, we can talk about it tomorrow.
We're almost done. We are almost done.
Right, Miss Hilton. Y'all, when I first got in this case, this order of exhibits, which it has it, I mean, we can talk about it tomorrow, but y'all given a couple of, I feel like, different updates to this since then.
We have.
Can you have for everybody to use first thing in the morning, whatever you believe your latest and greatest to be?
Yes.
The prosecution has had since, what is it? August to come up with this list that the judge asked for. And they still aren't done. Even though they had breaks after breaks after breaks, they're still not done with it. 5 assistant district attorneys. I don't know how many assistants, and they are still not done with it. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Okay. And then also, y'all had done kind of a partial list that had not only the witness, but the...
Hey, Rico's here. We found Rico. He was hiding with Little Mike and Quez and the third Quay.
evidence that, you know, the specific evidence that was going to come through. And I said, oh, don't get that detailed right now. Just focus on a broad one. But if y'all know it for other people by now, and, you know, it's in a form that can be put together pretty quickly, that might help us as well.
Yes, and we do have the Dropbox folders as well that have the exhibits, certain
Okay.
specific exhibits.
All right. So when we go through those, that's everything then. So
No,
Unless you do something, even the order of proof that the state has, maybe the court has, I believe it has generally evidence that we're going to be bringing into each.
okay. All right. So this is still a pretty good thing to follow.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Is there an update to it or no?
we'll provide
All
everyone
right,
tomorrow
great.
morning. with
Okay,
them.
because that'll help us. And then okay, well, I guess that's what we need then. It's just whatever the most up-to-date one is. So we will have whatever discussions we're going to have about that tomorrow in streamlining and what's necessary and what's not. And then potentially move to the exhibits that are already in and where everybody is on that.
Okay.
Okay. And so that'll probably be hopefully a shorter day tomorrow. And then Friday we can talk about it tomorrow, but Friday we'll be back at 9 for all the stuff for Mr. Ryan, and then circling back to finish.
Mr. Ryan. Who is Mr. Ryan? Why are they talking about Mr. Ryan and who is Mr. Ryan? And why do they have to talk about him, which has nothing to do with this case?
And then Friday we can talk about it tomorrow, but Friday we'll be back at 9 for all the stuff from.
She said about Ryan. Friday is about Ryan, so apparently Little Rod. Okay.
Mr. Ryan,
you.
and then circling back to finish up all the things that y'all wanted to get back with on both of those sets of wiretaps. And then where would we move from there? Just to the rest of I think we were on the witness, where were we, 60 through 106 or whatever?
Your Honor, but the defense has gone through it, so I assume that I might be wrong, that the objections that we went through this morning, they had went through all of those folders, so they presented their objections in that joint motion that we went through earlier, is what I assume.
Oh, that was the rest of the evidence?
I assume they went through all of it.
Fantastic.
So I think that would be a question for the defense, but my
Okay.
understanding,
Well,
they
let's
had
ask
went
the
through
defense.
all of it.
Okay, so the joint motion that y'all had
Little
agreement
Rod, okay.
to, or, things that were not yet agreed to that we went through this morning, does that cover all of the evidence that y'all know about that's been presented as, here's something we're gonna present?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay.
The state was still, and they may have sent it over today, but signifying what jail calls and what parts of body cameras, and I did not look at that if it
Okay.
did come. I think it came today.
And my apologies. That was the last groups, the videos or media. We sent over the timestamps. I think they need to review that to see if there's an
That got
issue.
sent today?
That got sent early this morning. Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
All right, well, hopefully then, by Friday, y'all will have looked, and let me just say, in terms of scheduling tomorrow, that it is going to be a shorter day because I have a couple of conflicts, and I may leave y'all here to work on both getting together on the exhibit list, but we can't push it off forever, because at some point we have to figure that out. But I may give y'all the afternoon to kind of stick around and work on the videos and the jail calls.
That would be great.
Okay. And then that way, Friday, we can discuss them. Okay?
We can also, it's okay with the court. Just go through and make sure we didn't miss anything in the 60 through 100
Sure.
and something.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for your hard work today. And I will see y'all all at 9 tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you. Just so y'all are clear, we're not really in session tomorrow. It's just basically going to be one big sort of meeting, but not court, not motions, just discussion. So y'all can have a day off.
All right, folks. Day 141 is done. And whatever they are doing, whatever they did today in court should have been done pre-trial. But since the prosecution is adamant in refusing in presenting a case in good time, in a timely manner, disclosing to the defense what evidence they are planning to use, this is what the judge is forced to do. She shouldn't. She, in my opinion, has the authority to say, if you haven't disclosed these pieces of evidence with every witness you had on your list, it's not coming in. Now we know that won't happen. But that is it for today, folks. Thank you all for the gifted memberships. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for allowing me to attempt to translate what's going on here. We got 18 new members today and one super chat for $10. That is a good day. And tomorrow, the Donna Adelson case. You really want to hear that cluster F as well. I will probably start not immediately in the morning, but maybe 10 a.m. Eastern time, something of the sort. Thank you, everybody. And remember, folks, hug your family. Unless your family is crap, then screw them and give your love to the people who deserve it. Okay? See you tomorrow, folks. Bye-bye.
Adrian in the courthouse spewing fire. Every word she utters smells like a tire. Her arguments hit like a flat balloon. Manure tornado in the courtroom noon. Her voice a chainsaw cutting through the air. But the logic's missing, nothing's really there. Whirling out of circles, losing grip. Every point she makes is just a slip. Manure tornado spreading wide. All her arguments turn to hide. Courtroom laughter when she's done. Prosecutor Adrian ain't one. Oh, no, I'm living in a one.